Chapter 146. After coming out of the meeting hall, Ouyang Shuo remembered the wolf fang necklace that he had not dealt with yesterday. He immediately left the mansion and prepared to go to the ancestral hall. Usually, the ancestral hall was very quiet. Apart from the two servants arranged by the Department of Culture and Education, no one would enter the ancestral hall. As soon as Ouyang Shuo walked into the ancestral hall, he heard a system notification. System notification: player not wearing special item, wolf fang necklace. This item is very compatible with the ancestral hall. Do you want to use it? Use it! With a flash of white light, the wolf fang necklace flew from Ouyang Shuo's hand and slowly flew towards the statue of the Yellow Emperor enshrined in the ancestral hall. It hung on the statue's neck. Suddenly, a golden light flashed, and the entire statue seemed to come to life, becoming unusually holy. System notification: Shanghai Town Ancestral Hall has been blessed by the Yellow Emperor's personal token. It has been renamed to the Yellow Emperor Temple, and its stats have been greatly increased. Please check for yourself. As the player from his previous life had speculated, the Ancestral Hall had changed after being blessed by the Yellow Emperor's personal token. Such a huge change was probably unimaginable even to the forecaster. Ouyang Shuo guessed that such a huge change was related to the wolf fang necklace. It was one of the symbols of the Yellow Emperor's status as a member of the royal family, so it was naturally extraordinary. After changing its name, the Yellow Emperor Temple had taken on a new look. The area it occupied had expanded by 3 or 4 times. It was gorgeous and solemn. It complemented the Mazu Temple on the side. Ouyang Shuo hurriedly checked the Yellow Emperor Temple's stats to see what surprises it could bring him. Name: Yellow Emperor Temple. Type: hidden building. Function: increase resident satisfaction by 40, increase territory popularity by 10 characteristics. Ancestral blessing: increase physical fitness of residents by 50. Evaluation: the Yellow Emperor Temple has the reputation of being the world's #1 temple. It is the main place in southern China to worship the ancestor of the Chinese people, the Yellow Emperor Xinyuan. Compared to the sealed Mazu Temple, the Yellow Emperor Temple's stats were clearly more powerful. The ancestral blessings stats greatly increased the physical fitness of the residents. It was a great advantage for the army. Ouyang Shuo couldn't imagine to what extent the mountain barbarians, who were already strong, would become after receiving the blessing of their ancestors. After leaving the Yellow Thart Shrine, Ouyang Shuo returned to the Lord's mansion and sent an alliance request to Feng Qiuhuang. When they were discussing the war map, the members of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas had already agreed to include Feng Qiuhuang's Luofeng town into the alliance. As a result, the Alliance of Mountains and Seas would become even more powerful. As Ouyang Shuo was the leader of the alliance, once Feng Qiuhuang agreed, she would automatically become a member of the Mountain and Sea Alliance. There was no need for her to repeatedly form alliances with other members of the alliance. With the addition of Fallen Phoenix Town to the alliance, the structure of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas was basically set in stone. Unless there were special circumstances, they would not easily accept new members. Ouyang Shuo's goal of forming an alliance could be considered to have come to an end. The next step would be to wait for all the players from all over the world to enter the city. Of the 6 members of the Mountains and Seas Alliance, Shanghai Town, Lingxi Town, and Mulan Town were located in the Dali region. Luofeng Town was located in the Luoyang region, and Longshuan Town and Black Lion Town were located in the Chuanzhou region. They formed a triangular formation. The battle at Zhuolu made the members of the alliance become familiar with each other. After the battle ended, the members lacked a communication channel. It was very inconvenient to rely on pigeons. Furthermore, pigeons could only be used for one-on-one communication. They could not be used for group discussions. Ouyang Shuo's heart stirred. He opened the Mountain and Sea Alliance's control panel and spent 400 gold coins to open the alliance channel. This way, the members of the alliance could chat in the channel. Compared to the national channel, the alliance channel was a one-time charge. After it was opened, there was no charge for chatting. It was very convenient. The alliance channel was similar to a chat group on the internet. Not all the players of the alliance would automatically join the channel. They needed to apply and be approved before they could join the channel. Since it was a communication channel between allies, Ouyang Shu naturally hoped that the channel would be dominated by the territory's upper echelons. As such, Ouyang Shu used his status as the channel's administrator to pull Feng Qiuhuang, Baiwa, Longshuan Point, Mulan Moon, and Siege Lion into the channel. At the same time, he gave them the status of channel administrator. This way, they would have the authority to pull the territory's players into the channel. Presumably, these people knew their limits. They would not pull unrelated players into the channel. After receiving Ouyang Shua's invitation, Baiwa and the others immediately agreed and joined the channel. So the Alliance has a dedicated channel. This is great. Underbelly Black Mulan Moon was the first to speak. I made Wui spend money again. Feng Qiuhuang clearly knew more about the Alliance channel. I can finally chat with these beauties at any time. This was Siege Lion with a loud voice. The in-game channel was very powerful. Not only did it support text chat, but it also supported voice chat and even long-distance video chat. It was no wonder that Siege Lion was so excited. The entire chat channel was the same as the other interfaces. It was a virtual screen that appeared in front of the players. Others, including NPCs, could not see this virtual screen. Players could turn off or on the virtual screen at any time. Brother Lion is a hooligan. Mulan Moon didn't give Siege Lion any face. Hooligan +1. Ouyang Shu joined in. Big brother, don't mock me like that. Siege Lion felt hurt. Serves you right. Who told you to not know how to cover up? This was Longshuan Point. He, the quiet goddess by Hua, was still a man of few words. Everyone can pull the core players in the territory into the channel. Ouyang Shu was still worried. He was afraid of unreliable players like Siege Lion. That's great, Bai Hua said as she pulled Violet, Red Eagle, and Cyan Robe into the channel. Feng Qiuhuang didn't want to be outdone. She pulled Blue Phoenix, Vermilion Bird, Black Swan, and Snow Goose into the channel. Ouyang Shu was speechless. Originally, there were 6 members in the Alliance. There were 3 males and 3 females. He didn't expect that the 2 female armies of Lingxi Town and Luofeng Town would immediately break the male-to-female ratio. It seemed like the Alliance channel had become a female army. However, the pervert Siege Lion didn't hide his perverted whistle in the channel. Mulan Moon and Longshuan Point were like Ouyang Shu. They were both solo players. They were the only players in the territory. There was another player in Black Lion Town. He was Siege Lion's best friend in real life. His ID in-game was Fat Tiger. There was no need to think. Just by looking at his ID, one could tell who he was. With the addition of more than 10 players, the channel immediately became lively. Many of these people hadn't met each other in the game. However, because they were in the same alliance and they were all young people, it was easy for them to get familiar with each other. Of course, it was undeniable that the 4 beauties of Lingxi Town were secretly competing with the 5 beauties of Luofeng Town. After all, the 2 territories had too many similarities. It was normal for women to secretly compete with each other. Before Luofeng Town joined the Alliance of Mountains and Seas, Lingxi Town was undeniably second in the Alliance. However, after Luofeng Town joined, it was hard to say who was second in the Alliance of Mountains and Seas. In terms of seniority, Lingxi Town was the first territory to ally with the Alliance of Mountains and Seas. Compared to newcomers like Luofeng Town, they naturally had more seniority. Even Ouyang Shu being the Alliance leader was suggested by Bai Hua. If Bai Hua hadn't taken the initiative to back down, the Alliance leader wouldn't have been elected so easily. In terms of strength, after the Battle of Zhuolu, Lingxi Town had closed the gap with Luofeng Town. However, Luofeng Town's foundation was still a little deeper. Even if Feng Qiuhuang was magnanimous, her sisters wouldn't be willing to hand over the position of second in the Alliance. As the Alliance leader, Ouyang Shu would naturally abide by the principle of neutrality. With Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang's intelligence, they would definitely be able to control this competition within the scope of a healthy competition. While chatting, Feng Qiuhuang suddenly asked, Wui, When will Shanghai Town apply for promotion? As far as I know, Di Chun has already applied to the system today, Feng Qiuhuang suddenly asked. The channel immediately fell silent. Clearly, everyone was very curious about this question. As the leader of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas, Shanghai Town's achievements, to a certain extent, affected the Alliance's position in the China region. Ouyang Shuo didn't intend to keep them in suspense. He said, "What a coincidence, I also applied today." "Wow, they're going against each other," Mu Lanyu exclaimed. "What do you mean by that?" "In my opinion, Dichen isn't Big Brother's match at all." Everyone knew that Siege Lion had a bad impression of Dichun. "Wui, are you confident?" Baihua asked with concern. "About 80%. Ouyang Shuo didn't give a definite answer. "Good luck." Dragon-seeking acupuncture point expressed his support. "Big Brother Wui, do you need us to arrange for reinforcements?" Jokes aside, Mulan Yue was very supportive of Ouyang Shuo at this crucial moment. Ouyang Shuo laughed and shook his head. This little idiot still didn't understand the situation. He smiled and said, "Silly girl, when a territory is promoted, allies are not allowed to send reinforcements. They haven't applied, so it's normal that they don't know," Mulan Yue said confidently. "I heard that the American region and the Indian region have already applied for their territories. The system's test will be in 1 or 2 days." Dragon-seeking acupuncture point was very sensitive to information. "Let's leave it to fate," Ouyang Shuo said helplessly. "Big Brother Wui is the best. They definitely won't succeed." This was another of Ouyang Shuo's admirers, Luo Feng Town's Qingluan. "Huh?" Ouyang Shuo laughed heartily. To be continued. Chapter 147. P.S. Chapter 2 will be updated before 11:30 p.m. 3 in the afternoon, Shanghai Town's meeting hall. Ouyang Shuo presided over the town's military and political meeting. Attending the meeting were Fan Zhongyin, Tian Wenjing, Cui Yingyu, Gu Hongliang, Infantry Battalion's General Shi Wansui, Cavalry Battalion's Commander Lin Yi, North Sea Fleet's Commander Pei Donglai, and Shanghai Town City Defense Battalion's Commander Zhao Sihu. Secretary Bai Nanpu was in charge of the meeting minutes. Before the meeting began, Ouyang Shuo had Secretary Bai Nanpu inform everyone that the topic of the meeting was how to deal with the bandits' attack on May 20th and ensure Shanghai Town's advancement smoothly. Before discussing specific strategies, Ouyang Shuo first paid attention to Shanghai Town's external environment. After the dawn operation, there was no movement from the nomadic tribes for the time being. Whether it was Khan Mengku of the Sky Order tribe or Chief Dariachi of the Sky Order tribe, they were both very shrewd people. They would not act rashly before they found out the truth of the matter. The only change was that the Sky Order tribe didn't hesitate to take back the pasture of the exterminated Tianlian tribe. The Sky Order tribe couldn't do anything about the Sky Order tribe's robbing behavior. They only sent out a symbolic warning, asking the Sky Order tribe to return the pasture. They didn't take any actual action. In Beihai Town, with the establishment of the 2nd Naval Battalion, the North Sea Fleet was taking shape. Pei Donglai stepped down from his position as commander of the North Sea Fleet. Zhou Feng, the former captain of the 1st Squadron, was promoted to North Sea Fleet's 1st Battalion. Yu Feng, the former captain of the 2nd Squadron, was promoted to North Sea Fleet's 2nd Battalion. Li Hai, the former captain of the 3rd Squadron, was promoted to Pei Donglai's 2nd Battalion. According to Ouyang Shuo's plan, the future North Sea Fleet would be at least an army division. The 2 naval battalions now weren't even 1/50th of their full strength. Ever since the pirate Black Shark of Mooner Island had visited the outer sea area of North Sea Town and encountered a setback, he hadn't made any further moves. Ouyang Shuo guessed that Black Shark wouldn't dare make another move before he figured out Beihai Town's strength. According to Pei Donglai's report, although Black Shark didn't have a large-scale operation, he could still see ships monitoring the surrounding waters of North Coast Town from time to time. It should be Black Shark's scouting ships. It seems that Black Shark hasn't given up yet. Pirates all cared about face. Previously, Blackbeard had come in high spirits, but in the end, he ended up fleeing. If he did not regain his face, how could Blackbeard maintain his authority? Pei Donglai did not passively defend either. He decisively took anti-reconnaissance measures and basically figured out your island's location. There was even a time when he used the high-speed assault ability of Meng Chang's warship to seize Black Shark's scouting ship and learn about Black Shark's basic situation from the captive. Pei Donglai, on the other hand, was full of confidence. He declared that it was fine if Black Shark didn't come, but once he did, he would make sure that they wouldn't be able to return. If it weren't for the lack of military strength, Pei Donglai would have wanted to attack the Black Shark's lair, Moon Island. The external threat was temporarily removed, and Ouyang Shua was even more confident in dealing with the upcoming siege of the roving bandits. The reason why Ouyang Shua had the confidence to defend against the bandits' attack was because his greatest trump card was the bed crossbow that the bow and crossbow division developed with reference to the Song Dynasty Crossbow Manufacturing Technical Manual. The heavy ballistae of a northern Song dynasty were developed to the point that 3 composite bows were assembled on the bed frame, which was known as the 3 bows 8 bulls bed crossbow. It required more than 100 people to twist the shaft and pull the string. The arrows were called wooden dry iron plume, which was also known as 1 spear 3 sword arrows. The arrows shot were as large as javelins, and the 3 iron plume were like 3 swords. The shooting range could reach more than 1,500 meters, which was one of the longest shooting records in the cold weapon era. In addition to shooting a single giant arrow, the bed crossbow could also shoot dozens of arrows at once. People called them jackdaw arrows. When besieging the city, they could also shoot the treading arrows, which would be nailed to the city walls in rows. The besieging soldiers would then be able to climb up the walls. Therefore, it could be said that the bed crossbow was a weapon that could be used both offensively and defensively. It was the pinnacle of crossbow technology in the Song dynasty. The difficulty of creating such a great killing weapon could be imagined. It had been a month and a half since the establishment of the archery and crossbow department. Even after such a long time, they had only created 2 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbows. Aside from the strongest 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbow, they had also created 4 ordinary bed crossbows. The aim and firing of the bed crossbows had to be handled by professionals. They needed to be strong men using huge axes to pull the trigger. The soldiers who used the bed crossbows were a specialized category in the army. They were known as bed crossbowmen. From the day the archery and crossbow department was established, the military office had been secretly selecting and training bed crossbowmen. There was a total of 500 of them. These 500 people were responsible for 2 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbows and 4 ordinary bed crossbows. Ouyang Shua specially named this troop of 500 soldiers the Divine Arms Battalion. The Divine Arms Battalion was a special troop in the Ming Dynasty's army that specialized in firearms. It was one of the 3 great battalions of the capital's Imperial Guards. As for the 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbows, they were like cannons among firearms. This showed Ouyang Shua's expectations for this troop. The battalion commander that the military office chose for the Divine Arms Battalion was called Wang Yuanfeng. He was 26 years old and was a low-ranked general. In terms of martial prowess, Wang Yuanfeng might not even be a match for a rank 7 elite soldier. However, in terms of familiarity with the bed crossbows, no one in the army could compare to him. Not only did this person know the structure of the bed crossbows, but he also had terrifying accuracy. He was the best candidate to command the 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbows. Name: Wang Yuanfeng. Silver. Identity: Shanghai Town's Divine Arms Battalion Commander. Occupation: low-ranked general. Loyalty: 85 Commander, 40 Martial Power, 25 Intelligence, 20 Politics, 15 Specialty. Accuracy: increases aiming accuracy by 50. Cultivation skills: none. Equipment: Tang Saber, leather armor. Evaluation: he once served in the Imperial Army. He is good at controlling all kinds of weapons, especially large ones like the bed crossbows. Of course, the bed crossbows and the Divine Arms Battalion alone would not be able to stop the bandits. According to the information disclosed by the Overlord players in his previous life, the number of attacking bandits should be about 6,000. The types of bandits would vary depending on the region where the territory was located. They could be roving bandits, mountain bandits, or water bandits. Given the situation in Shanghai town, it should be a combination of roving bandits and water bandits. The entire army in Shanghai town, including the Divine Arms Battalion and the Wolf Mountain Garrison Camp, only had 5,000 people. The Wolf Mountain Garrison Camp could not be mobilized. Firstly, their combat power was limited. Secondly, they had to guard against sneak attacks from the other mountain barbarian tribes. Similarly, the Northern Sea Fleet could not be mobilized. They had to leave at least one battalion behind. Otherwise, once Black Shark's scouting ships discovered anything strange, they might be attacked. The cavalry battalion in Friendship Town could retreat to the main camp temporarily. However, the city defense camp had to stay behind. Otherwise, it would be an empty city. Ouyang Shuo was not confident that he could hide this from that old fox, Dariachi. After the cavalry battalion left, Dariachi would definitely send people to investigate. If he discovered that there were no guards in the city, that old fox would not miss this opportunity. Pooltown City Defense Camp could be mobilized back to the main camp to participate in the defense. They had not discovered any threats at the Eastern Front yet. They could rest assured after one day. Over at the Mountain Barbarian side, peace returned to the Mountain Barbarian side after they eliminated the Swift Wind tribe. There are no strange movements for now. This way, the number of troops that could be mobilized, excluding the Divine Arms Battalion, was exactly 3,000. That was only half of the number that attacked the roving bandits. Furthermore, this was on the premise that the 300 soldiers who died in the Battle of Zhuolu were made up for. In the Battle of Zhuolu, Shanghai town lost 100 cavalry, 150 saber and shield soldiers, and 50 archers. The cavalry was easy to deal with. They could be transferred from the reserve soldiers. However, the saber and shield soldiers and archers were more troublesome. They needed to be selected from the mountain barbarian tribes. To nurture an archer, one could not do so without a foundation. They could only choose soldiers from the mountain barbarian tribes' hunters. Helpless, Ouyang Shuo could only take Gohonyang's suggestion and transfer 200 people from the Wolf Mountain Garrison Camp to replenish the dead troops. Then, he would transfer 200 newcomers from the various tribes to replenish the Wolf Mountain Garrison Camp. This way, the combat prowess of the troops could be guaranteed, and there was no need to worry about whether to transfer the Wolf Mountain Garrison Camp to participate in the defense. What was worse was that the Northern Sea Fleet could only fight in water. The cavalry was not suitable for defending the city, either. They could only be used as reserve troops for mobile strategies. Hence, only 2 battalions of infantry and 2 city defense battalions could participate in the defense of the city, a total of 2,000 people. Of the 2,000 people defending the city, there were only 700 archers. This was another disadvantage. Even with Shanghai town's foundation, it would be difficult to deploy the archers. This showed how difficult it was to advance to a grade 1 county city. In Shaoqian's previous life, many feudal lords did not dare to apply immediately when they met the requirements. They would only apply to the system after they were fully prepared. In the current situation, it would not work to expand the army at the last minute. The ratio of soldiers to soldiers in Shanghai town had already surpassed the bottom line of 1 in 10, reaching a shocking 1 in 5. If they expanded the army again, it would be no different from killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. Not to mention the pressure on the finances after expanding the army. More importantly, if they transferred a large number of young and strong men into the army, it would put an invisible squeeze on the territory's labor force. This would undoubtedly be a destructive blow to the various industries that were rising. Hence, after Gohong Liang, the head of the Military Affairs Bureau, proposed to expand the army, it was immediately opposed by the head of the Administration Bureau, Fan Zhongyan, and the head of the Finance Bureau, Cui Yingyu. Ouyang Shuo held the principle of better quality than quantity and rejected the Military Affairs Bureau's proposal. Firstly, there were insufficient soldiers. If they were to expand the army, they would have to lower the requirements for the assessment of the soldiers. This was something that Ouyang Shuo could not accept. It was inconsistent with the policy of elite soldiers that he had always pursued. Secondly, even if they were to expand the army now, these new soldiers were of low ranks and had not experienced any actual combat. It was easy to imagine how they would perform in a bloody battle like defending the city. To be continued. Chapter 148. The military administration's proposal to expand the army was rejected, and the meeting fell into a deadlock. Ouyang Shuo broke the deadlock and said, "Since the army is limited, then we can only start from other aspects. No matter what, we are the defending side, so we have the geographical advantage. The most important thing right now is to strengthen the preparation of defensive resources. Fierce flame oil, rolling wood, boulders, none of them can be lacking." Ouyang Shuo turned to look at Tian Wenjing and said, "The Resource Reserve Department needs to contact the quarry and lumber factory. Tell them to put down their work in the next 2 days and focus on preparing a batch of rolling wood and boulders to transport to the city walls." Tian Wenjing nodded to express his understanding. In fact, when Shanghai town city walls were completed, the Resource Reserve Department had already built a special warehouse near the city walls to store rolling wood and boulders. When Shi Wansui heard the Sir mention the fierce flame oil, he asked, "Sir, are you going to set up another fierce flame oil formation?" During the siege 3 months ago, it was precisely the fierce flame oil formation that was set up with fierce flame oil that played a decisive role. That was why Shi Wansui had such a deep impression of it. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, "The fierce flame oil formation is too inflexible. It can be used to deal with clumsy wild beasts, but it won't work against crafty bandits. The fierce flame oil formation is too conspicuous and can't fool the bandits at all. They won't fall for it, and we won't even have the chance to ignite the fierce flame oil formation. Even if it's a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. Once the fierce flame oil formation is ignited, the bandits can completely calmly retreat and then attack again after the fierce flame oil burns out. They aren't those simple-minded wild beasts." "Then what does Sir mean?" Shi Wansui asked in confusion. Ouyang Shuo didn't keep them in suspense and said with a smile, "To use fierce flame oil, apart from setting up the fierce flame oil formation, there's a more flexible method, and that is the fierce flame oil tank." Fierce flame oil tank. Correct. Ouyang Shuo took the opportunity to explain the principle and use of the fierce flame oil tank. The fierce flame oil tank was one of the earliest fire-breathing devices in ancient China. It used fierce flame oil as fuel and wrought copper as the tank. There were 4 legs at the bottom and 4 copper pipes at the top. The pipes were connected to the tank and could fill about 15 kilograms of oil at a time. The front of the pump was equipped with a fire tower, which was filled with gunpowder. When it was fired, the red-hot soldering cone was used to ignite the gunpowder in the flame tower. Then, the pump was pulled forcefully to compress air into the oil cabinet. When the fierce fire hole passed through the flame tower, it would ignite when it met a hot spot and become a raging flame. It was used to burn the enemy and destroy the war equipment. In addition, there was also a small flamethrower used for defending cities and water battles. It used copper gourds instead of oil tanks to make it easier to carry and move. Born in the Northern Song Dynasty, Fan Zhongyan had a deep understanding of the fierce fire oil tank. He worriedly said, "Your Excellency's idea seems to be good. But, firstly, I'm afraid we don't have enough time, and secondly, we don't have gunpowder to ignite the fire. I'm afraid it won't work." Ouyang Shuo nodded approvingly and said, "What Mr. said is very reasonable. I didn't expect to manufacture many of them. After the meeting, I would go to the market to purchase the Fierce Flame Oil Tank Manufacturing Technical Manual and have the weapons workshop work through the night. We should be able to manufacture 2 of them before the bandits attack. This kind of great killing weapon is mainly used to deal with the bandits. 2 of them are already enough. As for the problem of gunpowder, I think whether it is Qingyang Monastery's Good Daozhong or the Alchemy Workshop's Magnus, they both have a way to solve it. We only need a little bit of the catalyst, and the amount needed is very small. They definitely have it in stock." Fan Zhongyan suddenly understood and said with a smile, "Your Excellency's consideration is very thorough. This subordinate admires you." After settling the matter of defending the city, Ouyang Shuo began to discuss the logistics with everyone. This time, the bandits' target was naturally their headquarters. The bandits' main attack direction would also be the west and north. Especially after the moat was built in the north, Ouyang Shuo predicted that the bandits' main attack direction would definitely be the west. And there were many settlements built on the west side of Shanghai town. Before the arrival of the war, all the residents of the settlements had to be moved back to the city temporarily to ensure their safety. Ouyang Shuo handed this big project to the administrative office. Apart from the migration, the formation of the militia and the medical team also couldn't be delayed. The monster siege last time paled in comparison to the siege of the roving bandits this time. The militia and the medical team had to be formed in advance and undergo appropriate training. They also had to go to the city wall for adaptive training. They couldn't be sloppy. Ouyang Shuo handed this big project to the supplies reserve department. After the arrangements were made, Ouyang Shuo announced the end of the meeting. As for the specific tactical arrangements, it wasn't suitable to be discussed in the military meeting. They needed to convene a special military meeting. After the meeting, Ouyang Shuo called Ying Yu to his office and asked her to contact Beihai Town and sell the sea salt in the first half of May in advance to obtain a sum of money for the soldiers to change their jobs. After the alliance channel was opened, only 140 gold coins were left from the 4,000 gold coins paid last time at the Wolf Mountain mine. Fortunately, since the establishment of the audit department, the sea salt of the North Twilight Salt Works no longer needed to be transported to the headquarters to be sold. Under the supervision of the audit department, it could be sold directly through the market in Beihai Town. The headquarters would receive the funds from the North Twilight Salt Works by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. After sending Ying Yu off, Ouyang Shuo took advantage of the little time he had left to go to the high-class market and spent 20 gold coins to buy a Fierce Fire oil tank manufacturing technical manual. Then, he spent another 20 gold coins to buy a batch of Fierce Fire oil. It was already 6 o'clock in the evening when he returned to the Lord's mansion. Ouyang Shuo handed the Fierce Fire oil tank manufacturing technical manual to the clerk by Nanpu and asked him to send it to the weapons workshop overnight. He instructed Su Kuan, the chief officer of the weapons workshop, to study it overnight and strive to start manufacturing the next day. After that, Ouyang Shuo returned to the backyard and went offline to rest. After going online the next day, Ouyang Shuo was restless, because today was the day the Indian region's Bangalore town would be tested by the system. All the Lord's players around the world were silently paying attention to the world announcement. At this time, the most nervous person wasn't Ouyang Shuo, but Jack Dawson of the American region. His Freedom Town would be tested by the system tomorrow. Once Bangalore town was successfully promoted, Jack Dawson's efforts would be in vain. Ouyang Shuo suppressed the anxiety in his heart. On the surface, he was still calmly guarding the Lord's mansion. The war machine of Shanghai town was already operating at full power. Countless rolling logs and boulders were transported into the city from the sawmills and quarries outside the city by wooden oxen and flowing horses. Then, with the help of the militia, they were transported to the city walls. The 2 infantry battalions of the Western Barracks had already left the barracks and were officially stationed in the city. Under the guidance of the City Defense Battalion, they were familiarized with the various defensive facilities on the city walls. As for the Cavalry Battalion and Poole Town's City Defense Battalion, they would only be stationed tomorrow to reduce the risk of defending the subsidiary territories. The 5 Mongolian battleships of the North Sea Fleet's 1st Battalion had already entered the canyon and were temporarily docked at Shanghai Town's pier. The War Preparedness Division used this time to transport bundles of arrows to the warships. Similarly, bundles of arrows were also transported to the city walls. 2 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbows were already installed on the 2 sides of the western tower. 4 ordinary bed crossbows were installed on the 2 sides of the northern tower. Under the leadership of Battalion Commander Wang Yuanfeng, the soldiers of the Divine Arms Battalion started to fire at each bed crossbow. Shanghai Town had already declared martial law. All personnel had to go through strict checks when entering or leaving the town. This was to prevent bandits from infiltrating the town ahead of time. Tomorrow, after all the residents of the settlement had moved into the city, a curfew would be imposed. Only people could enter the city, but not leave. Under the leadership of Division Chief Li Tai, the Public Order Bureau strengthened the patrols in the city and strictly investigated all bandits. Even until 5 in the afternoon, there were no system announcements. Ouyang Shua could no longer endure such a tense atmosphere. After giving some instructions, he logged off early. After logging off, Ouyang Shua did not leave his room. Instead, he turned on his optical computer and logged into the game forum. Indeed, the India server's forum was very lively. All sorts of gossip and news flew around. Bengaluru town's success is at hand. The best county in the world is beckoning to Daivala. Bengaluru town's defense failed. Daivala is completely out of the fight for the best county in the world. The bandits are like the tide. Daivala admits that he is not prepared. The final wave of attacks is coming. Whether Bengaluru town's defense will be determined soon. The bandits are too cunning. To think that they used tunnel tactics to successfully break through Bengaluru's defense line. The information on the forum contradicted each other. No one knew which was true and which was false. It seemed that they would not know the truth until the last moment. At this time, Ouyang Shua calmed down. He no longer cared about the gossip and began to cultivate the inner canon of the yellow arch in his room. After 2 days of cultivation, Ouyang Shua's Dantian already had 8 wisps of golden inner force. After going online yesterday, Ouyang Shua had confirmed that a wisp of golden inner force represented 1 inner force point in the game. He could now cultivate once a day. Each time, he would circulate it 4 times and produce 4 wisps of golden inner force. In other words, under normal circumstances, he would need 25 days to reach the maximum value of 100 inner force points for the first level. The difficulty of cultivating an Emperor tier cultivation technique was obvious. One had to know that this was only the first level. 2 hours later, Ouyang Shua finished cultivating. At this time, regardless of whether Bengaluru town's defense succeeded or not, there should be definite news. Ouyang Shua logged into the forum again. The headline on the India server's front page was a huge blood-red title. Bengaluru town fails at the last step. Daivala's dream ends first in the world. Ouyang Shua heaved a sigh of relief. Shanghai town had finally turned around. Now, the only obstacle in front of Shanghai town was Liberty town, which was going to be tested tomorrow. To be continued. Chapter 149. On the forum, the players had already disclosed the details of the defensive battle in Bangalore. Bangalore also had tall city walls. The difference was that their city walls were made of compacted lush soil, with only a layer of green bricks on the outside, unlike Shanghai town, which used all stone. There were a total of 2,000 soldiers participating in the defense of Bangalore. The number of attacking bandits was about 6,200, more than 3 times that of the defending troops. Unlike Shanghai town, which only had 3 city gates, Bangalore had 4 standard city gates, so its defense was much heavier than that of Shanghai town. The bandits were also cunning. Not only did they surround 1 gate from 3 sides, but they also adopted the tactic of feigning attacks from 2 sides while focusing on 1 gate. In the morning, the bandits only launched a probing attack, and the attacks from 3 sides were equally strong. Daivala, the Lord of Bangalore, was confused by the bandits' tactics. Taking advantage of the noon truce, he readjusted the defensive deployment of the city walls and arranged the defensive forces on the 3 sides very evenly. During the attack in the afternoon, the killing intent of the bandits gradually revealed. On the surface, the number of bandits attacking from 3 sides was the same as in the morning. There were still more than 2,000 bandits on each side. In fact, taking advantage of the noon truce, the bandits had already reorganized their troops. They divided the ordinary bandits into the east and west sides and gathered all the elite bandits together to attack the north gate with all their might. As a result, the north gate was immediately in a state of emergency. By the time Daivala discovered the bandits' plot, the battle on all 3 sides had already begun. If he adjusted the deployment of the army in a hurry, it would give the other party an opportunity. Helpless, Daivala could only grit his teeth and persevere, hoping that the North Gate could hold on until reinforcements arrived after the siege on the east and west sides were resolved. Unfortunately, after an afternoon of fierce battle and under the attack of the elite bandits, Bangalore's North Gate was ultimately not defended. Once the North Gate was breached, the entire town was immediately in a state of emergency due to the chain reaction. Not long after, it was captured by the bandits. After capturing Bangalore, the bandits did not carry out a massacre. Instead, after looting the town, they swaggered off. This was also the result of the system's intentional arrangement. It left room for the failed territory. Strictly speaking, Daivala's command could be considered to be standard, not making any major mistakes. Unfortunately, in the end, he still couldn't defeat the cunning of the bandits, regretfully failing. With this failure, Bangalore town would need at least half a month to regain its vitality. The two consecutive failures were a wake-up call for all the lower-tier players. No territory dared to apply for promotion with the hope of getting lucky. After learning that Bangalore town had failed, Di Chin's heart sank. He already had a bad premonition. His Handan town was even weaker than Bangalore town in terms of defense. How could he have the confidence to win? Di Chin was already regretting his actions this time around. Unfortunately, there was no turning back. Di Chin had no choice but to lead his Handan town to the very end. After the defeat of Bangalore, the whole world's attention was focused on Liberty Town in the United States. Jack Dawson, on the other hand, was very confident. He swore that Liberty Town would never repeat the mistakes of Bangalore Town, and that it would definitely seize the honor of being the best county in the world. In order to show his confidence, Jack also announced that he would arrange for people to broadcast the details of the defense of Liberty Town on the forum the next day, inviting all players to watch. Ouyang Shua smiled. The Americans were still so confident. He somewhat admired Jack's confidence. As a lord, he needed to have this kind of aura that could not be ignored. It seemed that there would really be a good show to watch tomorrow. Since Jack was so confident, he must really have a trump card. This American was no fool. Ouyang Shua clearly remembered that in his previous life, the honor of being the best county in the world had been won by Liberty Town. It was just that in terms of time, it should be slightly later. Perhaps the sudden appearance of Shanghai Town had put a lot of pressure on Jack and the others. After learning that there was a battle mission in the China region, Jack did not hesitate to apply for promotion with the system. Jack was very clear that once the battle ended, Shanghai Town would definitely apply for promotion with the system. After losing the honor of being the best county in the world, Jack did not want to give up the honor of being the best county in the world. On the 19th of May, Ouyang Shua logged into the game on time. Early in the morning, the cavalry camp station in Friendship Town and Pool Town City Defense Camp all left their camps and entered the base camp. Although there were 2,000 troops stationed at once, the advanced military camp in the city did not seem crowded at all. When the military camp in the city was planned, it was built according to the scale of the future Imperial Guards. After the two battalions crossed the river, the ferries of the three towns started to move immediately. The carriage office gathered all the boats at the ferries into the city to prevent them from being found by the roving bandits. This way, unless the roving bandits found out about the defense of Shanghai Town in advance and knew that there was a moat in Shanghai Town, they would not be able to bring a large number of boats. Otherwise, the risk of the roving bandits besieging the north and east gates of Shanghai Town would be eliminated. While all the battalions were in position, Ouyang Shua gathered a few generals and held a short military meeting. The main point was to coordinate the distribution of the battalion's defense areas. After discussion, it was decided that Shanghai Town City Defense Camp would be in charge of the West Gate Defense Area. Pool Town City Defense Camp's 4 companies, excluding the Cavalry Company, would be in charge of the North Gate Defense Area, and 500 reserve troops would be in charge of the East Gate Defense Area. The Cavalry Battalion and the Cavalry Company from Pool Town City Defense Camp will be deployed at the West Gate as a mobile force, ready to attack at any time. As for the 2 infantry battalions of the West Camp, the 1st Infantry Battalion and 2 companies from the 2nd Infantry Battalion, they would be deployed at the West Gate Wall to assist Shanghai Town City Defense Camp in defense. The remaining 3 companies from the 2nd Infantry Battalion will be deployed at the North Gate Wall to assist Pooltown's city defense camp in defense. It could be seen that the West Gate would be the main area of defense, with a total of 1,800 people deployed. Furthermore, the killing weapons, the 3 bows, 8 bull's bed crossbow, and the fierce fire oil cabinet, were deployed at the West Gate. In comparison, the North Gate's defense was slightly weaker, with only 700 people deployed. Firstly, the space outside the North Gate was limited. Secondly, with the protection of the moat, even if the roving bandits wanted to play any tricks and cross the moat, the gains would not make up for the losses. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo was very assured. Apart from this, the 1st Battalion of the North Sea Fleet would also leave Shanghai Town's pier tomorrow morning, heading to the Friendship River in the north to assist in the defense of the North Gate. If the roving bandits wanted to attack through the waterway, then they had the wrong idea. The North Sea Fleet would definitely give them a head-on attack. As for the East Gate, he believed that the roving bandits wouldn't be so stupid as to make such a huge detour just to attack the East Gate. If that was really the case, he believed that the 500 reserve troops deployed will be able to hold on until the reinforcements arrived. Furthermore, the outer area of the East Gate was completely divided into 2 by the moat. It was a dead land, and it was really not suitable for the siege troops. The only weakness of the East Gate was the worry that the enemy would attack from the sea, pass through the canyon, and then land on land. If they were even more perverted, they could use small warships to land on land and directly go up the moat, driving the warships to the foot of the east city wall. Then, they would use the warships as cover and use bows and arrows to counterattack the city guards. This kind of situation was almost impossible. The 2nd Battalion of the North Sea Fleet deployed at North Sea Town wasn't just for decoration. They firmly guarded the estuary, and if they wanted to pass through the canyon, they would have to break through the North Sea Fleet's defensive line. At this time, the benefits of Ouyang Shuo's careful choice of building the village could be seen. With the back of the mountain range, there was no need to worry about the rear, and the problem of Shanghai Town's defense in the south was completely solved. A large river surrounded the north and east sides of Shanghai Town, which was equivalent to removing the threat on the east side and greatly weakening the threat on the north side. It was precisely because of such a unique advantage that Shanghai Town could deploy a large number of troops to the West Gate. Starting at 10 in the morning, the residents of the various settlements outside the city were led by the administrative office's officials to arrange everyone's food and accommodation. All the residents were temporarily settled in the residential areas of the city and distributed to various households. The residents of the city were responsible for their food and accommodation. The finance department had a special financial subsidy for each household. This arrangement prevented these migrants from setting up tents in the city, which would affect the city's security and increase the difficulty of the public order department's management. Secondly, it was also convenient to monitor the migrants and prevent roving bandits from mingling among the migrants. Yesterday afternoon, the administrative office had already explained very clearly to each household that the residents of the city had the responsibility of monitoring them. Once they discovered any abnormalities, they should immediately report to the public order department. Those who did not report would be transferred to the disciplinary bureau for punishment. Ouyang Shuo was making full use of the power of the masses to prevent the infiltration of roving bandits to the greatest extent. At 3 in the afternoon, the last batch of residents of the settlement entered the city. The military office immediately ordered to seal all the major city gates. All personnel were only allowed to enter and not leave. At 4 in the afternoon, North Sea Town sent over the first half of May's profits from the Northern Sunset Salt Field. In late April, a large number of captives of the Swift Wind tribe were sent to the Northern Sunset Salt Field. The Northern Sunset Salt Field had been expanded to the largest scale of 10,000 mu. Therefore, in just the first half of the month, the Northern Sunset Salt Field achieved a net profit of 3,600 gold coins, which was equivalent to the entire month of April's profit. It cost 250 gold coins to change professions for 100 cavalrymen and 200 infantrymen. Ouyang Shuo intercepted 2,000 gold coins and injected the remaining 1,350 gold coins into the Bank of the Four Seas. With the expansion of the territory and the opening of branches in the three major subsidiary territories, the Bank of the Four Seas reserves were already a bit stretched. If it wasn't for the finance department transferring the support funds through the Bank of the Four Seas, they would have long been unable to maintain it. At 5 in the afternoon, good news finally came from the weapons workshop. After 2 days and 1 night of overtime, the weapons workshop had finally built 2 fierce fire oil tanks. These 2 fierce fire oil tanks were arranged by Ouyang Shuo at the West Gate. To be continued. Chapter 150. P.S. 2 updates have been restored. No updates at night. After settling Shanghai town's affairs, Ouyang Shuo still didn't hear the global announcement. In other words, Liberty Town and the American Zone had either failed to advance or was still engaged in an intense battle with the bandits. Ouyang Shuo found Shi Wansui and Zhao Sihu and instructed them to strengthen their night patrols. Then, he eagerly went offline to understand the latest situation in Liberty Town. After going offline, Ouyang Shuo logged into the game forum and clicked on the American Zone. What made Ouyang Shuo uneasy was that there was no announcement of Liberty Town's advancement failure on the forum. In other words, Liberty Town was still fighting. Jack kept his promise and opened a live stream thread on the forum. However, due to the need for confidentiality, the so-called live stream was only a transmission of text and pictures. There was no live video. Gaia was indeed powerful. Jack's live stream thread had real-time translations in various languages. Although the Federation had been established for some time, the 2 mainstream languages, English and Mandarin, still coexisted. After Ouyang Shuo chose Mandarin, he began to understand the details of Liberty Town's defense. The beginning of the thread introduced the basic situation of Liberty Town and included a bird's-eye view of Liberty Town. From the bird's-eye view, it could be clearly seen that the walls of Liberty Town were similar to the ancient European bastion design. The so-called bastion was essentially changing the fortress from a convex polygon to a concave polygon. Such an improvement made it so that no matter which point of the castle was attacked, the attacker would be exposed to more than one bastion surface. The defenders could use crossfire to launch multiple attacks. Just from the design of the city walls, one could see that Liberty Town was extraordinary. There were 2,500 soldiers participating in the defense of Liberty Town. As for the attacking bandits, there were only 6,500 people, 300 more than the bandits attacking Bangalore Town. Just from the comparison of the number of troops on both sides, Liberty Town had the advantage over the previously defeated Bangalore Town. Liberty Town's secret weapon also officially made its debut in this battle. It turned out to be a musket used in Europe in the 16th century. Its specific name should be called a trigger firing matchlock. This kind of musket was a smoothbore gun with the front loaded. Its effective shooting range was 50 to 80 meters. Compared to the rifles of the later generations, the trigger-firing matchlock still had a huge flaw, because when the soldier was loading the gun and preparing a fire, he had to divide it into 6 steps, which was quite complicated, time-consuming, and could not take a concealed position. The caliber of the barrel was too large, the gun was too long and heavy, the firing range was too short, and the accuracy of the shot was poor. When the soldier raised the gun in a standing position, he sometimes had to use a support pole to hold the gun up. Although it had this flaw, compared to cold weapons, the trigger-firing matchlock was still a powerful new weapon. Jack Dawson was brimming with confidence because he had the redoubt and the flintlock as his trump cards. Unfortunately, the cunning and strength of the bandits still gave Jack a heavy slap in the face. Of course, the system was not an idiot. Due to the different history of each region, the technology tree would also be different. Jack thought that his flintlock was unique, but he didn't expect that the attacking bandits had already formed a cavalry equipped with flintlocks. Thus, the balance of the war was rebalanced. The evenly matched 2 sides fought fiercely from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but there was still no clear winner. The system stipulated that as long as the territory could be defended for 12 hours, even if the bandits were not repelled, the system would automatically determine that the defending side won. In other words, as long as Freedom Town held on for another 3 hours, they could successfully advance. Unfortunately, the bandits were still more skilled. After more than 10 hours of continuous probing, the bandits finally found the blind spot of Freedom Town's defense. This blind spot was not a problem with the design of the city wall, but a blind spot caused by the hasty preparations of Freedom Town due to the lack of troops. The advantage of the redoubt was naturally very obvious. Similarly, to fully utilize the advantage of the redoubt, they had to deploy more defensive troops than ordinary city walls. Obviously, the number of troops in Freedom Town was still a little insufficient compared to the redoubt. It wasn't that Jack didn't know about the loophole in his defense, but he was hoping that the bandits wouldn't be able to discover such a well-hidden loophole. Unfortunately, the cunning of the bandits was far beyond Jack's imagination. The leader of the bandits was also very bold. Once he found the opponent's weakness, he would decisively concentrate his troops to break through, not giving the opponent any chance to breathe. Finally, before the sky turned completely dark, the bandits broke through Freedom Town, announcing that Freedom Town's dream of becoming the #1 county in the world had officially failed. After exiting the forum, Ouyang Shua was both relieved and bewildered. Fortunately, he finally saw the dawn of Shanghai Town winning the honor of being the #1 county in the world. The obstacles in front of Shanghai Town were no longer there. What surprised him was that Freedom Town, with its powerful strength, could not stop the bandits' attack. Could Shanghai Town really succeed tomorrow? The preparations that he thought were thorough were probably going to be for naught. From the 2 defensive battles in Bangalore Town and Freedom Town, he could tell that the bandits were too cunning and did not play by the rules. After calming himself down, Ouyang Shua walked out of his bedroom and started his routine jog. When Ouyang Shua returned home with breakfast, Sun Xiaoya had just finished washing up. The battle in Freedom Town the day before was too sensational. Even a life profession player like Xiaoya had heard about it. Sun Xiaoya walked to the dining table, picked up a fried dough stick, and took a bite. She gossiped, "I heard that Freedom Town in the U.S. failed to advance yesterday." Ouyang Shua responded absent-mindedly and continued eating his buns. "Hey, I'm talking to you. Are you listening or not?" Xiaoya was a little dissatisfied with Ouyang Shua's perfunctory response. Ouyang Shua nodded like a chick pecking at grains. I'm listening. You're not sincere at all." Ouyang Shua raised his head helplessly and said, "Big sis, what happened in the U.S. has nothing to do with us. Why are you worried about it? If it failed, so be it. Aren't you a feudal lord too? You don't even care about this. Is it because your territory's level is too low and you're still a long way from advancing?" Sun Xiaoya was not to be outdone and said sarcastically, Yes. I'm still worlds apart." Ouyang Shua decided to admit defeat. "You." Sun Xiaoya was so angry that she did not know what to say. Fortunately, Binger had just woken up. The little girl was sleepy and mumbled in a daze, "Bad brother. What are you talking about? You've woken up, Binger." Ouyang Shua shook his head and said, "Baby, it's time to get up. Go wash up. After breakfast, brother will send you to school." The little girl nodded and walked into the washroom. After such a ruckus, Ouyang Shua and Sun Xiaoya no longer brought up the previous topic and ate their breakfast in silence. On the way to school, Binger suddenly pulled Ouyang Shua's hand and said in a crisp voice, "Brother, did you quarrel with Sister Xiaoya this morning?" Ouyang Shua was startled. This girl was still so cute and sensible that it made his heart ache. He rubbed the little girl's head and said dotingly, "It's nothing. We just quarrel for a while. When we go back, brother will apologize to Sister Xiaoya, okay?" The little girl immediately became happy. "Brother is a man, so you should be more magnanimous." Ouyang Shua tapped her forehead and said with a smile, "You're so mischievous." The little girl giggled and did not say anything. A warm current inadvertently flowed in Ouyang Shua's heart. What imperial hegemony! Nothing could compare to Binger's smile. Ouyang Shua suddenly squatted down and said to Binger, "Come, brother will carry you to school." Binger immediately became excited. The little girl jumped on the spot like an octopus, firmly lying on Ouyang Shua's back. Her delicate face was brimming with happiness. Ouyang Shua came back from school and saw Sun Xiaoya, comfortably lying on the sofa, reading a fashion magazine. Since she was at home, Xiaoya was dressed very casually. She wore a loose white t-shirt with a cartoon pattern on it and a pair of super short jeans, showing her slender white and tender legs in front of Ouyang Shuo without any reservation. Ouyang Shuo had seen this scene countless times and had already become immune to it. He casually asked, "You have no class this morning?" Sun Xiaoya was obviously not in high spirits and lazily said, I only have one class in the afternoon today. I'm sorry about the matter this morning." Ouyang Shuo took the initiative to admit his mistake. Sun Xiaoya was startled. She finally raised her head and looked at Ouyang Shuo in surprise. Her face instantly turned warm, and she said, "Forget it. I forgive you. You look absent-minded. Did you encounter something difficult?" Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and said, "It's nothing. Don't worry, I'll handle it well." Sun Xiaoya curled her lips and didn't probe further. Her attention returned to the fashion magazine, and she muttered, "Male chauvinism." Ouyang Shuo didn't care about Xiaoya's muttering. He returned to his room and began to practice the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. At noon, Ouyang Shuo specially cooked a few good dishes to express his apology. After Sun Xiaoya finished eating, her face was full of satisfaction. The resentment from a morning had completely dissipated, and she went back to school. In the evening, Bing'er came home from school and saw that her brother and sister Xiaoya had reconciled. She was very happy inside. When it was time to eat, the little girl deliberately brought the bowl to Ouyang Shuo's side and sat next to her brother. Ouyang Shuo naturally saw through Bing'er's careful thoughts. The little girl was expressing her silent support for her brother's generosity during the day. Ouyang Shuo shook his head with a smile. He conveniently picked up a piece of pork rib and put it in Bing'er's bowl. He then said with a smile, "Eat more, baby." "Thank you, big brother," the little girl said sweetly. The tacit understanding between the brother and sister was really enviable to others. After dinner, Ouyang Shuo didn't stay for even a moment. He returned to his room and logged into the game. To be continued. Chapter 151. 20th day of the 5th month of the first year of Gaia. Shanghai Town. When the first ray of sunlight shone on Shanghai Town, the slumbering war beast had completely awakened. It bared its fangs at the silent wilderness. The 1st Battalion of the North Sea Fleet headed to the intersection of the moat and the Friendship River. They guarded the waterway and prevented the water bandits from attacking along the moat. The soldiers of the various battalions rushed to their respective defensive areas under the leadership of the battalion commander. They knew that a fierce battle was waiting for them. In the backyard of the Lord's residence, Qing'er paced around anxiously, which was very different from her usual temperament. "Sister, do you think Big Brother can stop the bandits this time?" Ingyu sat in the pavilion of the courtyard and took a sip of the white tea that Si Qin had just brewed. She said calmly, "He can definitely stop them. When has Big Brother ever failed?" In fact, Ingyu was also nervous, but as an elder sister, she could not show it. "Yes, but I'm still a little worried. Smelly Big Brother actually doesn't allow us to go out." Qing'er complained about Ouyang Shuo on the surface, but she was actually very touched. The bandits this time were different from the previous monster attack. Once the city was breached, Shanghai Town would definitely be plundered. Therefore, for safety reasons, Ouyang Shuo did not arrange anything for Ingyu and Qing'er, letting them stay in the Lord's residence. Ouyang Shuo had already informed Lin Yu of the dojo and asked him to lead the disciples of the dojo to temporarily stay in the Lord's residence and take on the heavy responsibility of guarding the Lord's residence. At 7:30 in the morning, Feng Xiaohuang, Bai Hua, dragon-seeking acupoint, Mu Lanyue, and Siege Lion appeared at the teleportation array of Shanghai Town. Ouyang Shuo was dressed in military attire and welcomed them at the teleportation array. This time, they had come to Mountain Sea Town as observers to observe the entire Mountain Sea Town defense battle and accumulate experience for their respective territories in advance. Feng Xiaohuang and the others had to thank Mu Lanyue for coming. When Mu Lanyue learned that Shanghai Town was going to be attacked by the bandits today, she said in the Alliance channel that she wanted to come and watch the show. Mu Lanyue was after all young and naive. She said whatever came to her mind and did not think that such a request would put Ouyang Shuo in a difficult position. People like Bai Hua and Feng Xiaohuang would never make such a request. Ouyang Shuo admired Mu Lanyue's straightforwardness. After some consideration, he nodded in agreement. Since he had promised Mu Lanyue, he naturally couldn't favor one over the other. Among the 5 of them, only Feng Xiaohuang was here for the first time. It was just that time was of the essence, and there was no extra time for her to visit. After leaving the teleportation array, Ouyang Shuo led by Hua and the others to the West Gate Tower. Commander Shi Wansui and Deputy Commander Zhao Xiu, who were in charge of defending the west side, had already ascended the city gate tower a step ahead of them. The Lord flag of the Shanghai town fluttered in the wind, and the golden dragon shone brightly under the sunlight. Everyone in Shanghai town would unite under this flag and pledge their lives to defend their territory. At 8 in the morning, billowing smoke rose from the sentry tower in the distance. Everyone knew that the bandits were here. The sound of the system notification resounded in Ouyang Shuo's ears. System notice. The Mountain Sea Town's roving bandits siege test has officially begun. There are a total of 6,700 bandits attacking this time. Player who says that has no clothes, please prepare for battle. Ouyang Shuo cursed in his heart. 6,700 bandits, 200 more than yesterday's Freedom Town. He really didn't know what the system was based on. Could it be that the Mountain Sea Town had exterminated too many bandits before, so it arranged for such a large number of bandits? This was really a headache. The mighty bandit army appeared on the vast plains west of the town. When the army arrived 3 kilometers west of the town, they stopped and began to set up camp. There were a total of 3 leaders leading the 6,700 bandits. The first leader, Huiyang, led 2,000 elite bandits and 3,000 ordinary bandits, all of whom were infantrymen. The second leader, Black Cavalry, led 1,000 elite bandits, all of whom were cavalry. The third leader, Huolu, was Huiyang's younger brother, led 700 bandits. The first leader, Huiyang, and the second leader, Black Cavalry, led 6,000 bandits to the west of Shanghai town. As for the third leader, Huolu, he naturally led 700 bandits along the Friendship River. After setting up camp, the Black Cavalry came to Huiyang's tent and asked, "Big brother, how should we fight this battle?" Huiyang was a middle-aged man about 35 or 36 years old. He looked extremely refined and didn't look like a bandit leader at all. Only the brothers of the bandit camp knew how fierce this leader of theirs was. Huiyang frowned. "You saw it too. This town isn't simple. Not only does it have a tall city wall, but it even has a moat." The Black Cavalry nodded. "That's right. I rode around and found that only the west side can be attacked. The other sides are very difficult. I think the other party must be confident and will definitely deploy a large number of troops to defend against us. I'm afraid it won't be easy to successfully take down the city gate." Huiyang shook his head and said, "The art of war says that disadvantages are advantages. Since the other party has made such arrangements, then we don't have to waste any more time thinking about it. We might as well concentrate all our forces and focus on attacking the west gate. I don't believe that we can't take down a broken city gate with just 6,000 men. Big brother is brilliant. In addition, send out the orders. Apart from assembling the siege equipment, send a portion of the men to the moat and start building pontoon bridges," Huiyang said. The Black Cavalry looked puzzled and asked, "Big brother, didn't you say to gather all our forces to attack the west gate? Why did you send people to build pontoon bridges?" Huiyang smiled mysteriously and said, "The art of war is the path of deception. False is real, and true is false. We're going to attack the west gate with all our strength, but we can't let the other party see through our intentions so easily. The other party will definitely not relax their defenses on the north side after seeing us build pontoon bridges. This way, we can effectively restrain the other party's forces." The Black Cavalry said with a look of admiration, "Big brother is still the brilliant one. All right, I'll send out the orders right away." Huiyang waved his hand and said with a smile, "Go." Outside the tent, the bandits had already started to assemble all kinds of siege equipment, including ladders, catapults, and assault vehicles specially used to break through the city gates. If Ouyang Shuo saw these equipment, he would definitely be dumbfounded. The system was too deceptive. How could a group of bandits have such professional siege equipment? First was the scaling ladder, which was not a simple wooden ladder. The ladder assembled by the bandits had wheels at the bottom that could be pushed. It was equipped with defensive shields, winches, grappling hooks, and other equipment. It was very sharp. The catapult was a great weapon in siege warfare. It used the principle of leverage to throw stone projectiles. The catapult assembled by the bandits was not the most primitive kind that required dozens of people to pull the rope to throw the stone. Instead, it was a catapult with its own weight. When it was thrown, as long as one held one end tightly and placed the stone ball on it, the weight would sink after releasing it. Then, through the principle of leverage, the stone ball would be thrown out rapidly. When the battle began, the west side of Shanghai town was abnormally calm. The bandits made their preparations unhurriedly, with no intention of attacking immediately. The first place to erupt into conflict was the Friendship River. The third leader, Huolu, led 700 bandits down the river on more than 10 warships. When they sailed to the junction of the Friendship River and the moat, they unexpectedly encountered the North Sea Fleet stationed here. The 5 warships of the North Sea Fleet formed a formation of 1, 2, and 2, guarding the Friendship River, completely sealing off the river. Pei Donglai's flagship was at the front. Seeing the approaching pirate fleet, Pei Donglai did not hesitate at all. He immediately ordered the messengers to signal and give the order to attack. In the era before warships were equipped with cannons, there were not many ways to fight on the water. It was nothing more than long-range archers shooting or boarding battles. Ever since the establishment of the crossbow department, the crossbows of the Shanghai town army were far stronger than the bows used by the bandits in the wilderness. Therefore, with the advantage of range before the bandits could react, the North Sea Fleet had already launched an attack. Row after row of arrows rained down on the bandits' warships. The bandits' warships were just ordinary ships with limited defense capabilities. Most of the bandits were out in the open, and there was no canopy above their heads. Therefore, the few rounds of arrows from the North Sea Fleet immediately caused heavy losses to the bandits. The third leader, Huolu, was also a ruthless character. Facing the attack of the North Sea Fleet, he did not retreat but advanced. He ordered the fleet to accelerate and close the distance between the two sides so that he could launch a counterattack. These bandits were naturally also ruthless characters. Howling, they piloted their warships and charged toward the North Sea Fleet. Pei Donglai himself had stayed in the water bandits for a long time. In fact, many of the soldiers in the North Sea Fleet were captives of the water bandits who had transferred over. Naturally, they were very familiar with the bandits. Facing the charging bandits, Pei Donglai did not panic at all. He ordered the troops to continue shooting. When the distance between the two sides was about to enter the bandits' shooting range, Pei Donglai decisively ordered the fleet to accelerate. At this moment, the superior performance of the Mengchong warship was fully displayed. Before the bandits could react, it had already charged in front of the bandits' warships. The powerful Mengchong warship smashed the bandits' warships into pieces. Taking advantage of the other side's panic, Pei Donglai decisively ordered them to start boarding battles. The soldiers of the North Sea Fleet were originally transferred from bandits. After a long period of training and battle, their individual combat strength could already completely crush the bandits. Moreover, a Mengchong warship could carry 100 soldiers of the Navy, and a bandit warship could only carry 60 bandits at most. Therefore, in a one-on-one boarding battle, the North Sea Fleet had the upper hand, be it in terms of quantity or quality. The Friendship River was only 35 meters wide. It was unable to accommodate too many warships. Therefore, although the bandits had the advantage in terms of number of warships, there were not many warships that could actually face the North Sea Fleet head-on. In less than half an hour, the North Sea Fleet had crippled the 5 warships in front of the bandits. Seeing that the situation was not right, the bandits at the back immediately turned around and fled. Pei Donglai did not give the order to pursue them. Instead, he completely destroyed the 5 warships that had already been crippled. To be continued. Chapter 152. Ouyang Shuo stood on the West City Tower and saw 3 signal flares rising in the northern sky. He immediately felt relieved. According to the rules of Shanghai Town, 3 signal flares meant that they had encountered the enemy and successfully repelled them. Huiyang was not as relaxed as Ouyang Shuo. The fleeing bandits did not dare to disappear without a trace. After leaving the battle, they immediately sent people ashore to report the military situation to the great leader. By the time Huiyang received the news, it was already 10 in the morning. At this time, all the siege equipment had been assembled, and even the pontoon bridge that served as a diversion had been set up. At this moment, he suddenly received news that the navy was defeated and even his younger brother, Huolu, was captured by the other party. How could Huiyang not be furious? He executed the pirate who reported the news on the spot. Originally, Huiyang wanted to cooperate with the pirates to restrain the garrison of Shanghai Town. He did not expect that Shanghai Town was already prepared and had a regular navy. It was really a bad start. There was no point in waiting any longer. Huiyang was also a decisive person. He ordered the entire army to set off and officially attack the west gate of Shanghai Town. Each wall of Shanghai Town was 3 kilometers long. According to the average soldier occupying 1 meter of space, in theory, 3,000 people could stand in a row. 6,000 bandits were only enough to form 2 rows. Of course, that was not the way to fight a war. Of course, Huiyang was not stupid enough to spread his offensive line so wide. Facing the stone walls of Shanghai Town, the only way to break through the city was to break through the city gates. The 3,000 ordinary bandits were at the front. Their role was to consume the resources of Shanghai Town and pave the way for the 2,000 elite bandits to break through the city. As for the 1,000 cavalrymen led by the Black Knights, they could not play a role during the siege. They were arranged by Huiyang to cover the middle army and provide support. Facing the charging bandits, the archers arranged in the west immediately started shooting under Zhao Sihu's command. Unfortunately, the Shanghai Town city defense camp only had 2 archer and 2 crossbowman squadrons. There were too few of them, and their lethality was limited. A round of volleys could only cause 200 casualties at most. After 3 rounds of volleys, the bandits had already rushed under the city wall. At this moment, the archers among the elite bandits in the back row also started to counterattack. In order to make up for the difference, the roving bandits specially assembled mobile arrow towers. The elite bandits stood on the archer towers and fired at the city walls. Therefore, the archers of both sides began to shoot at each other, striving to get rid of the opponent's long-range attack power in the shortest time possible. The 3,000 roving bandits who took the lead were naturally not empty-handed. 15 well-assembled scaling ladders were slowly pushed to the bottom of the city wall. Once the ladder was successfully hooked onto the city wall, the bandits hiding under the ladder could quickly climb up the city wall through the ladder. After discovering the other party's scaling ladders, Shi Wansui decisively commanded the 800 blade and shield troops to quickly adjust their respective defense areas. Each scaling ladder was guarded by 50 people. The remaining 50 would serve as a reserve force, ready to reinforce the various defense sectors at any time. A large number of rolling logs and boulders were unceremoniously thrown down by the city guards towards the roving bandits below the scaling ladders. Every time they attacked, there would be many casualties. For a moment, the bandits were unable to attack the city wall. Meanwhile, behind the bandits, 5 catapults were already in position, starting to hurl stone balls. The huge stone balls moved like cannonballs, arcing through the air and smashing into the city wall. Once the soldiers guarding the city were hit by the stone balls, they would immediately turn into a pile of meat paste. Seeing the tragic scene before her, Mulan Yue, who was watching from the side, could no longer endure it. Ouyang Shuo arranged for her to rest in the resting room in the city tower. Seeing that the city guards were in a disadvantageous situation, the Divine Strategy Battalion finally showed its might. Under Wang Yuanfeng's command, 2 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbows aimed at the 5 catapults and fired a volley of jackdaw arrows. How could the bandits operating the catapults expect to be hit from so far away? They all fell to the ground after being hit by the arrows. In less than half an hour, the Divine Strategy Battalion completely suppressed the 5 catapults. No one who was not afraid of death dared to operate the catapults anymore. Seeing the Divine Strategy Battalion's might, the eyes of Bai Hua and the others immediately lit up as they turned their heads to look at Ouyang Shuo. Ouyang Shuo smiled bitterly and shook his head. Then he said, "That is the 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbow. It is the most powerful bed crossbow recorded in the Song Dynasty Crossbow Manufacturing Technical Manual that we obtained at the auction. Don't look at me like that. Although this thing is powerful, it is extremely difficult to manufacture. Shanghai Town has only managed to make these 2 in the 1.5 months since they obtained the Song Dynasty Crossbow Manufacturing Technical Manual." Bai Hua smiled faintly and said, "Wooey. In any case, there is still some time before Lingxi Town advances. We still have time. At that time, you have to sell me too. We'll see when the time comes." Ouyang Shuo did not dare to guarantee anything. "Wooey, you can't be biased," Feng Qiuhuang chimed in. "Feng Wu, you can forget about it. Your Luofeng town is already close to advancing. You definitely won't make it in time." Ouyang Shuo quickly made his stance clear. However, the dragon-seeking acupoint and siege lion clansmen did not seem concerned. In reality, this was their territory. There was still a long time before they could advance. It was not the time to be anxious. In the rear of the bandits, seeing that their catapults had been suppressed, Huagang's expression turned grave. He turned his head to look around and shouted, "Do any of you know what kind of crossbow the enemy is using to have such a long range?" A bandit stood out and said uncertainly, "Great leader, I heard that the Imperial Army has a kind of defensive weapon called the bed crossbow. It has an extremely long range. Could it be that weapon?" Huagang nodded. "Most likely. It seems that the other side is really a tough nut to crack." "Then what do we do now? Send another 1,000 elite soldiers up? We must put pressure on the enemy," Huagang decisively ordered. Yes. Although they had successfully eliminated the threat of the catapults, the defending side was still in constant danger. In the end, there were still too few people. On average, there were only 50 blade and shield soldiers near each ladder. They had to endure the arrows from the other side while guarding against the enemy climbing up from the ladders. At the same time, they had to move logs and boulders down. These logs and boulders were not light. Moving them over a long period of time was a huge drain on their stamina. At this time, the other side actually sent another 1,000 elite bandits. The danger immediately increased. Seeing that the other side had made up their mind to focus on one gate, Ouyang Shuo no longer hesitated. He summoned a messenger and told him to inform the commander of the North Gate, Gohongliang, to transfer 3 platoons of blade and shield soldiers from the North Gate's garrison to rush to the West Gate to participate in the defense. In this way, there were only 400 people left in the North Gate's garrison. These 400 people were the 1,000 elite bandits who had yet to go up to deal with the bandits. Ouyang Shuo was worried that the other side would take advantage of the battle at the West Gate to suddenly pass through the pontoon bridge and attack the North Gate. Thus, he had to be on guard. Before the North Gate's reinforcements arrived, the West Gate was already in danger. The combat strength of the elite bandits was twice that of the ordinary bandits. The addition of such a new force immediately plunged the soldiers guarding the city into a crisis. Ouyang Shuo made a prompt decision and ordered the 500 civilian soldiers who were still on standby near the city wall to climb up the city wall. They took over the duties of the blade and shield soldiers and were responsible for throwing logs and boulders down. He had no choice but to let the civilian soldiers take the field. These civilians had not experienced the baptism of war. It was unknown whether they could complete the task when they were sent to the city wall and faced with a massacre. It was normal for ordinary people to feel their limbs go soft when they saw such a scene. Who would have the courage to throw logs and boulders down to kill the enemy? Seeing that the situation was not right, Ouyang Shuo knew that he had to boost the morale at this time. Ouyang Shuo held his spear and apologized to Bai Hua and the others. He immediately rushed to the front line and took the lead. The current Ouyang Shuo was no longer an ignorant person. Whether it was the Yang family's spear technique or the inner cannon of the Yellow Emperor, they were constantly increasing his combat strength. When facing the bandits, he would often just stab them to death with his spear. He already had some of the elegance of Shi Wansui in the past, seeing the Lord personally kill the enemy, and so valiantly. In an instant, whether it was the blade and shield soldiers or the civilian soldiers, their morale immediately rose. The commoners overcame their fear, risking their lives to throw pieces of rolling logs and boulders at the bandits who were charging at them. With the civilian team sharing the pressure from the side, the saber and shield soldiers could fight freely with the bandits that charged at them, forcing them to retreat time and time again. The 1st Infantry Battalion in charge of defending the west side was the most elite unit among the infantry. Even when facing elite bandits, they still had the upper hand. Of course, because of the disparity in numbers, the situation was still disadvantageous to Shanghai Town. At the most critical moment, Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to give the order to use the last secret weapon, the fierce fire oil tank. Originally, he planned to use this trump card at the last moment to decide the outcome of the battle. The fierce fire oil tank was indeed powerful. Even though the other side's ladder had been fireproof, it was still set ablaze by the raging flames of the fierce fire oil tank. The raging fire immediately destroyed the 2 ladders. The only regret was that it was not convenient to move the fierce fire oil tank. By the time the blade and shield soldiers arrived from the north gate as reinforcements, the soldiers guarding the city had already suffered heavy losses. Fortunately, the addition of this batch of fresh troops finally stabilized the situation. Seeing that the attack was not successful and it was almost noon, Hu Jie could only give the order to temporarily retreat. On the side of Shanghai Town, while the other side retreated, the medical team immediately rushed over and bandaged the injured soldiers. The seriously injured soldiers were carried down the city wall and sent to the medical center for treatment. The civilian soldiers began to clean up the defensive supplies and transported a new batch of supplies to the city wall for use in the afternoon. To be continued. Chapter 153. The War Preparedness Division delivered hot meals to reward the soldiers defending the city. At this time, no one dared to leave the city walls. Even Ouyang Shuo didn't leave. He had Sangha Restaurant prepare some food and wine and sent it to the resting room of the city tower to entertain Bai Hua and the others. During the lunch break, the members of the Mountain Sea Alliance ate and chatted. The topic of their conversation was naturally the bandit siege that had just ended. I didn't expect the bandits to fight so fiercely, Xuanlong Acupoint sighed. Yeah, I don't even have confidence anymore. Feng Qiuhuang echoed, a look of uncertainty on her face. Bai Hua looked at Ouyang Shuo worriedly and asked, Wui, are you confident about the afternoon attack? The others also looked at Ouyang Shuo with concern. Ouyang Shuo smiled and said, It's fine. We blocked the bandits' fierce attack in the morning, and the enemy has lost their spirit. As long as we don't make any mistakes in the afternoon, we should be able to stop them. But the Mountain Sea Town's army also suffered heavy losses in the morning. Moreover, the enemy still has 1,000 elite bandits and 1,000 cavalrymen who haven't moved out yet. Bai Hua wasn't as optimistic as Ouyang Shuo. According to the post-battle statistics, among the 6,700 bandits, of the 700 bandits, 200 died in battle, 300 were captured, and 200 escaped. Of the 3,000 ordinary bandits, 1,200 died in battle, and of the 1,000 elite bandits, 300 died in battle. In other words, the bandits still had more than half of their fighting strength. Of course, such heavy losses were a fatal blow to the bandits' morale. Whether they could fight as hard as they did in the afternoon was a big question mark. On the Mountain Sea Town side, 50 of the North Sea Fleet's 500 sailors had died, 50 of the 400 archers of the Mountain Sea Town City Defense Camp had died, 200 of the 1,100 saber and shield soldiers had died, and 80 of the 500 commoners had died. Compared to the bandits, the casualty ratio was about 1:5, which was already an ideal ratio. The bandits have suffered more losses than us. Let's see how they deal with it in the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo pointed out. At the same time, in the bandit camp, Big Brother, the situation isn't looking good. How should we deal with it in the afternoon? Shadow Knight asked. Huafan was very calm. He chuckled and said, Second Brother, it's your turn in the afternoon. What do you mean? The Shadow Knights were puzzled. In the morning, I arranged for people to build the pontoon bridge. I had already made preparations for both eventualities. During the siege in the morning, according to the reports of the soldiers who had retreated, the enemy had called in a batch of reinforcements at the last moment. These reinforcements must have come from a north gate or the east gate. This way, the defenses of Shanghai town at the north and east gates will be further weakened. This is our opportunity. Second Brother, immediately take your cavalry and make a detour from the rear. Cross the moat from the pontoon bridge and launch a surprise attack on the enemy's north gate. Remember, you have to wait until after the west gate attacks. You can't attack ahead of time. Otherwise, the other side will be on guard. Do you understand? Huagang explained. Understood, the Shadow Knight said excitedly. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the bandits launched another attack. This time, Huiyang did not leave any reserve troops. He ordered the entire army to press forward and put a lot of pressure on the west gate so that Shanghai town would have no time to deal with the north gate. Ouyang Shaw stood on the city gate tower and saw that the 1,000 cavalrymen on the flank of the bandits had disappeared. He immediately had a bad premonition. Sure enough, in the northern sky, a signal flare rose. This meant that they were under attack. Messenger, here, order the North Sea Fleet to immediately enter the moat and assist in the defense of the North Gate. Understood. After the messenger left, Bai Hua sighed and said, These bandits are indeed cunning and shrewd. Once they find a loophole in our defense, they don't hesitate to fight. Ouyang Shuo chuckled and said, Originally, I didn't have absolute confidence. But now, I can be sure that Shanghai town will definitely win this attack. What do you mean? The bandits think they're smart. They want to use the idle cavalry to attack the north gate of Shanghai town. However, they don't know that there are still 400 soldiers guarding the north gate and the North Sea Fleet supporting them. With just the 1,000 cavalrymen, it's impossible to break through the north gate in a short period of time. More importantly, the 600 cavalrymen who were lying in ambush at the west gate of Shanghai town would have a place to fight if the enemy moved their cavalry away. Originally, the bandits had 1,000 cavalrymen protecting the flank, so I didn't dare to send them out. Now that they're courting death, they can't blame me, Ouyang Shuo explained. Bai Hua's eyes lit up, and he said with a smile, I see. The enemy definitely didn't expect Shanghai town to have so many cavalrymen. They've been biding their time. Ouyang Shuo nodded and called for the messenger again. Pass down my order. Tell General Lin to get ready to leave the city at any time and wait for my orders. Understood. Brother Wui, why don't you let the cavalry attack now? Mulan Yue asked curiously. The little girl had finally adapted to the battlefield environment and walked out of the resting room. Ouyang Shuo smiled and explained, Right now, the bandits have just launched their attack. Be it their stamina or morale, they're at their peak. It's not a good time to attack. Oh, an hour later, the battle on the west gate was still in a stalemate. Although the bandits had a new 1,000 elite soldiers, the defending soldiers also had 300 more reinforcements. Coupled with the fierce fire oil tank, the two sides were still evenly matched. The sneak attack at the north gate was thwarted, and the west gate was in a stalemate. Huiyang finally couldn't stay calm anymore. Especially with the increase in casualties, the bandits' morale had fallen to a critical point. If he didn't take action now, there might be deserters. Huiyang did not dare to delay. He decided to personally take action to boost morale. Ouyang Shuo stood on the city gate tower. When he saw the bandit leader finally join the battle, he relaxed. He quickly summoned the Divine Strategy Battalion commander, Wang Yuanfeng. Then he pointed at the bandit leader in the distance and said, General Wang, Do you see that middle-aged man commanding in the middle? Wang Yuanfeng's vision was startling. Naturally, he saw the man with one glance. I see him. Is that the bandit leader? That's right. How is it? Are you confident of killing him? Wang Yuanfeng thought for a while before saying cautiously, the other party is about 1,300 meters away from the city walls. He is within the range of the ballisti. We can give it a try. Ouyang Shua nodded. General Wang, let's give it a try. Remember, it's best if both ballisti fire at the same time. You only have one such opportunity. Understood. Wang Yuanfeng turned and left. Then he called out to the ballisti to calibrate and aim the two ballisti. If one wanted to kill the enemy leader, one had to fire the strongest arrow of the 3-bow 8-bull ballisti, the 1-spear 3-sword arrows, which had a range of 1,500 meters. As for suppressing the catapults earlier, one fired jackdaw arrows, which could fire dozens of arrows at once, suppressing the other party from getting close to the catapults. After taking aim, the two 3-bow 8-bull ballisti fired at the same time under Wang Yuanfeng's command. The huge spear, 3-sword arrows that looked like javelins drew beautiful arcs in the air, heading for the bandit leader, Yang. Ouyang Shua stood on the city wall, nervously watching the trajectory of the spear, 3-sword arrows. Indeed, Wang Yuanfeng did not let him down. Two sharp arrows streaked across the sky, one in front and one behind, accurately targeting Huiyang's position. At this moment, Huiyang was trying to boost morale. The bandit leader could not retaliate against the arrows falling from the sky. The arrows were like javelins, piercing through Huiyang and killing him on the spot. With Huiyang's death, the bandits' morale, which had just recovered, immediately plummeted. This was especially so because Huiyang's death was too shocking. They could not imagine that the enemy could shoot such a deadly arrow from 1,300 meters away. Ouyang Shua, of course, would not miss this opportunity. He yelled, "Messenger, here! Order the cavalry to leave the city immediately, break through the enemy's line of defense, and completely crush them." "Yes, sir." The messenger didn't dare delay and immediately ran down the city wall. Below the city wall, 600 cavalrymen were already waiting in formation. After receiving the order, Lin Yi's face was full of excitement. He turned to the cavalrymen behind him. "Brothers, it's our turn. Kill!" The 600 cavalrymen roared excitedly. These excellent warriors had been waiting for almost an entire day. Even a militia had been sent to the battlefield by the Lord, but they had been waiting all this time. Now it was finally time for them to show off their skills. How could they not be excited? As the city gate slowly opened, the 600 cavalrymen shot out of the city gate like a sharp arrow, piercing the belly of the bandit army. Behind them, the city gate that had just been opened was quickly closed again. The news of Huiyang's death had slowly spread among the bandits. At this time, the bandits' morale was low, and they were lacking a backbone. The attack of the Shanghai town's cavalry was like the last straw that broke the roving bandits' back, completely crushing their will to resist. Lin, he was already very familiar with this kind of charge, especially during the Zhuolu battle. Lin, he had seen Zhang Liao's superb cavalry commanding art from beginning to end, and he had learned a lot. Lin, he was also a considerate person, and when the battle stopped, he humbly asked Zhang Liao for guidance. Zhang Liao was not a selfish person, and he had a good impression of Lin Yi, so he didn't hesitate to teach him everything he knew. Under Lin Yi's command, the 600 cavalrymen rampaged through the bandits as if there was no one there. The attacking bandits were prepared to attack the city, and their formation was also an offensive formation. They were completely unprepared against the cavalry's charge, and with their low morale, how could they stop the cavalry's charge? Lin Yi was smart, and he led the cavalry to destroy the bandits' ladders, catapults, and moving arrow towers, buying time for his comrades defending the city. The siege weapons were destroyed, and the attacking bandits were forced to retreat. After charging for a while, Lin Yi didn't dare stay on the battlefield for too long, and he quickly led the cavalry back to the city. At this time, the bandits were like frightened birds, and they had no power to stop the cavalry's retreat. To be continued. Chapter 154. P.S. This chapter is for subscription. There will be a second chapter at night. The rest of the battle fell into Shanghai Town's rhythm. Of the 3 bandit leaders, Hui Yang was dead. The second leader was trapped at the north gate, and the third leader, Hu Lu, was captured. The bandits on the west side were leaderless. Although they still had some fighting power, they didn't know what to do next. Should they continue attacking or retreat? Ouyang Shaw didn't give the bandits too much time to think. After the wall crisis was over, he ordered Shi Wan Sui to gather the sword and shield troops and get ready to leave the city and defeat the bandits. Ouyang Shaw said goodbye to Bai Hua and the others and walked down the wall. Below the wall, the cavalry was resting and the medical team was bandaging the wounded. Even though this wave of attacks was unexpected, for the sake of destroying as much of the bandit siege equipment as possible, they still lost more than 50 people. Master, Linny bowed when he saw Ouyang Shaw. Ouyang Shaw nodded with a smile. Good job. Master, what should we do next? Lin, he asked with concern. Naturally, we'll crush them in one go. The infantry will follow you out of the city. Linny paused and asked doubtfully, Master, there are still a lot of bandits? Why don't we use the wall and continue to defend the city? Ouyang Shaw shook his head. They're afraid. They don't have the guts to attack the city. If I'm not wrong, it'll be hard for the enemy to organize a defense after we launch the last attack. Running away is their only choice. We don't have time to waste with these bandits. Don't forget that the North Gate is still under attack. Understood. After a short period of rest and reorganization, Ouyang Shaw personally led the 550 cavalrymen and the surviving 800 sword and shield troops out of the city gate. This time, Ouyang Shaw didn't plan to use guerrilla tactics. He wanted to fight the bandits head-on. The cavalry was like a flood, crashing into the bandits and starting a merciless massacre. The sword and shield troops didn't show any weakness. Under Shi Wan Sui's lead, they were extremely brave. Speaking of which, the sword and shield soldiers were holding back their anger. They had been passively defending on the city wall for half a day. Now that they finally had a chance to attack on the battlefield, how could they not be excited? Just as Ouyang Shaw had expected, the attack launched by the Shanghai town had once again exceeded the expectations of the bandits. After paying a huge price, the bandits, who were already frightened by the mere twang of a bowstring, could no longer hold on. At this moment, there was no need to be conflicted anymore. They could just quickly flee for their lives. At this time, Ouyang Shaw had another thought. He rode on the dark subdued horse and shouted at the fleeing bandits, "Put down your weapons, surrender, and we won't kill you." Seeing that their lord was playing the game of asking them to surrender again, the soldiers cooperated and shouted in unison, "Put down your weapons, surrender, and we won't kill you." The huge sound was deafening. To be honest, it was a little baffling that these bandits were arranged to attack Shanghai town. Since the great leader was dead, surrendering was not a bad choice. That was why even without much urging, there were bandits who continuously threw down their weapons, surrendering on the spot. Of course, there were also stubborn people who wanted to take the opportunity to escape. Towards these bandits, Ouyang Shaw would definitely not be lenient. He ordered the cavalry to chase after them and kill them one by one. How could those who walked on 2 legs run faster than those who walked on 4 legs? Needless to say, most of these bandits who attempted to escape were killed. Seeing that there was no hope of escaping, more bandits began to surrender. The weapons in their hands were like hot potatoes that were thrown away faster than the other. Ouyang Shaw also did not have time to count the number of people who surrendered. He left behind the blade and shield soldiers to escort the captives to the barracks. After Ouyang Shaw brought the cavalry back to the city, he passed through the town and ran towards the north gate. At this moment, the shadow cavalry still did not know about the changes that happened at the west side. They were still trying to lead the cavalry to break through the defense of the north gate. Unfortunately, these cavalry were good at charging. It was a little difficult for them to besiege the city. In addition, they lacked siege weapons, which made it even more difficult. Limited by the width and depth of the moat, the North Sea Fleet's battleships were unable to enter the moat. Hence, the guards at the North Gate now only consisted of the 4 platoons of Pool Town City Defense Camp. There was 1 blade and shield soldier platoon, 2 archer platoon, and 1 crossbowman platoon. The good thing was that the Divine Arms Camp had set up 4 ordinary crossbows at the north gate, slightly making up for the difference in military strength. Both sides were in a deadlock. They did not know what to do. Just at this moment, Ouyang Shuo led the cavalry and rushed to the north gate. Ouyang Shuo ordered Lin Yi to wait at the city gate while he climbed up the city gate alone. When Gu Hongliang and Zhang Daniu, who were in charge of guarding the north gate, saw Ouyang Shuo, they were very surprised. Gu Hongliang's heart skipped a beat. He asked with uncertainty, "Sir, has the west side already won?" Ouyang Shuo nodded approvingly and said with a smile, "That's right. The threat at the west side is completely resolved. General Shi is escorting the captives back to the barracks. I was worried about your side, so I rushed over with the cavalry as reinforcements." "That's great," Gu Hongliang and Zhang Daniu said in unison. "Let's go. Let me take a look at the bandit cavalry." Ouyang Shuo walked to the side of the city gate and looked down. He saw about 800-odd cavalrymen hiding far away from the crossbow's firing range, not daring to show their faces. Ouyang Shuo did not want to let this group of cavalrymen go, either. Although Shanghai Town had won this battle, it had suffered heavy casualties and was in urgent need of new blood. These roving bandits in front of him just happened to be the most suitable soldiers. Secondly, Shanghai Town would be promoted to Shanghai County after this battle, so he needed to expand his army. Since that was the case, it was very suitable to take in these bandits under his banner. Ouyang Shuo did not care about their identity as bandits. Most of the soldiers in Shanghai Town were bandits. As long as they were paid on time and restrained by military discipline, the bandits' bandit nature would slowly wear away over time. Actually, there are not many bandits who truly like to do evil. Most of them only became bandits when they were forced to make a living or when they had no other choice or by chance. Ouyang Shuo turned around and looked at Gu Hongliang. He asked calmly, "Division Chief Gu, according to your observation, what is the character of the bandit cavalry leader like?" "What do you mean, sir?" Gu Hongliang was a little bewildered. "You don't need to care about what I think. Just tell me what you feel." This military chief liked to overthink sometimes. Gu Hongliang pondered for a moment and said, "In my opinion, the other party does not seem to be a vicious person." "Oh!" Ouyang Shuo's eyes lit up. He asked with interest, "What do you mean?" Gu Hongliang sorted out his words and said, "In the beginning, the other party directly rushed to the city gate and was ready to launch an attack. However, when they realized that our crossbows were too powerful, they decisively ordered a retreat and did not rashly continue to attack. Therefore, I boldly speculate that the other party cherishes his subordinates. Generally speaking, such a leader would not be a vicious person." Ouyang Shuo nodded and did not comment. Ouyang Shuo thought for a moment and finally said to Gu Hongliang, "In that case, let's go and meet this cavalry leader." "Yes." Walking down the city gate tower, Ouyang Shuo rode on the green beetle horse and ordered the guards to open the city gate and lower the drawbridge. Just when the shadow cavalry was in a dilemma, they suddenly saw the city gate that they had been unable to break open from the inside. The drawbridge was slowly lowered, and a group of cavalry appeared at the city gate. Ouyang Shuo led the cavalry through the drawbridge and crossed the moat. When they were less than a kilometer away from the bandit cavalry, he shouted loudly, "I am the lord of Shanghai Town. Who is your leader? Can you come out and talk?" While the shadow cavalry was bewildered, they suddenly saw a young general walking at the front. He was riding an extraordinarily handsome horse. He was wearing exquisite armor and had an extraordinary aura. Hearing Ouyang Shuo shout, the shadow cavalry was even more surprised. A bad premonition rose from the bottom of their hearts. At this time, the shadow cavalry did not allow themselves to be afraid. They rode to the front of the group and replied loudly, "I am the leader of the cavalry, shadow cavalry. May I know what you want?" Ouyang Shuo nodded. Looking at the other party's wording, it was not as rude as the other bandits. He felt more confident and said, "I don't dare to give you any advice. It's just that I'm afraid you don't know the situation on the west side. I can tell you about it. The bad premonition in the Shadow Cavalry's heart became stronger. They still looked strong on the surface and did not show any weakness. They shouted, what do you mean? Ouyang Shuo also kept them in suspense. He said, your leader has been shot dead by our crossbows. Not only that, but the entire troops on the west side have surrendered. I don't need to say more. I'm sure you know what this means. The outcome of the battle has been decided. I don't want to kill anymore. As long as you are willing to surrender, I promise that I will let bygones be bygones. I can even accept you into the Shanghai Town's army. Ouyang Shuo's words immediately caused a commotion among the bandit cavalry. The Shadow Cavalry's heart turned cold. As expected, the worst outcome had happened. Of course, he wouldn't be intimidated by a simple sentence from the other party. He shouted in a stern voice, ridiculous! This is just your word. How can we believe it? After the Shadow Cavalry finished speaking, the bandits quieted down and started to doubt the truth of the matter. Ouyang Shuo chuckled as he turned to Lin Yi behind him. Lin Yi understood and ordered someone to send Hui Yang's head to the other side. Seeing the leader's head, the bandits finally believed that the army on the west side had really surrendered. A wave of despair rose in their hearts. Even if they wanted to cross the pontoon bridge and escape, it was already impossible for them to do so. After all, the other side also had cavalry. They would not allow them to cross the pontoon bridge easily. Shadow Cavalry turned to look at his panicking subordinates with a pained expression. In the end, he steeled his heart and turned his head to look at Ouyang Shuo as he shouted in a sorrowful voice, "We surrender." Good. Ouyang Shuo was overjoyed. To be continued. Chapter 155. The moment the Black Knights surrendered, Ouyang Shuo heard the sweet sound of the system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player how you have Nothing's territory, Shanghai Town, for successfully passing the system test and officially being promoted to a level 1 county. At that moment, a golden light shot up into the sky from the Territorial Lord's mansion and exploded in the sky, turning into a golden halo that spread out in all directions. The halo extended all the way to the new border of the territory and disappeared again. System notification. Congratulations to player how you have Nothing's territory being promoted to a level 1 county. The Territorial Lord's Mansion has been automatically promoted to a County Territorial Lord's Mansion. 3 county-level basic buildings will be randomly selected. Player may also choose one of them. System notification. 3 buildings have been randomly selected. They're the Tea House, the City God's Temple, and the Prison. Please make your choice. I choose the City God's Temple. System notification. The building is being automatically generated. Please check for yourself. Immediately after, a series of system announcements rang out. System notification. Congratulations to player how you have Nothing's Mansion for becoming the first Territorial Lord in the China server to be promoted to a level 1 county. Reward. 2,200 merit points. System notification. Congratulations to player how you have Nothing's Mansion for becoming the first Territorial Lord in the China server to be promoted to a level 1 county. Reward. 2,200 merit points. System notification. Congratulations to player how you have Nothing's Mansion for becoming the first Territorial Lord in the China server to be promoted to a level 1 county. Reward. 2,200 merit points. Compared to the village and town stages, the merit points awarded at the county stage were doubled. As soon as the announcement came out, the China server was in an uproar. There were no signs of Shanghai Town's promotion. 2 days ago, the players witnessed the India server's Bangalore Town and the America server's Liberty Town failing to promote. Everyone thought that the Territorial Lord players would learn their lesson and delay the territory promotion application. Would have thought that Shanghai Town would go against the trend. More importantly, Shanghai Town had actually successfully promoted. The players in the China server felt as if they were witnessing history. As expected, right after the system announcement, the world announcement rang out. World announcement. Congratulations to player how you have Nothing's Mansion for becoming the first Territorial Lord in the world to be promoted to a level 1 county. Reward. 4,000 merit points, 4,000 reputation points, Shanghai County, number 1 county in the world. World announcement. Congratulations to China server player Not Have Clothes for becoming the first county lord in the world to be promoted to a level 1 county. Rewards: 4,000 achievement points for 1,000 reputation points and the title of Shanghai County number 1 county. World announcement. Congratulations to China server player Not Have Clothes for becoming the first county lord in the world to be promoted to a level 1 county. Rewards: 4,000 achievement points for 1,000 reputation points and the title of Shanghai County number 1 county. A strong sense of collective honor rose in the hearts of the China server players. The players of the China server were extremely excited. Some of the more impatient ones did not want to log out of the game and vent their emotions on the forums, so they directly spent a gold coin to shout on the national channel. At this point in the game, 1 gold coin was no longer unbearable. Commenter 1. How can you say you have no clothes to wear? You bring glory to the country. Amazing. Give me a like. Second comment. How can you say you have no clothes? Third comment. Number 1 in the world again. That's amazing. Fourth comment. How can you say you have no clothes? I want to bear your children. Ouyang Shaw, of course, did not have the energy to pay attention to the national channel. He still had a lot of things to take care of. After the surrender of the Black Knights, Ouyang Shu ordered Lin Yi to bring the roving bandits to the barracks. The army reorganization plan would be discussed the next day. After that, Ouyang Shu called Gu Hongliang to his side and asked the military office to calculate the casualties. He also asked the military office to draw up a preliminary army reorganization plan. After that, Ouyang Shu rode his green horse and rushed to the square. After receiving the system announcement, Bai Hua and the others knew the result and did not stay in the West Tower. They all returned to the square and prepared to use the portal to return to their respective territories. Ouyang Shu came to send everyone off, and Bai Hua and the others expressed their congratulations before leaving. They knew that Shanghai County had just been promoted, and there were a lot of things waiting for Ouyang Shu to deal with. It was already late, and it was best not to disturb him. The Alliance channel was already set up anyway, and they could discuss it through the channel if there was anything. Before leaving, Feng Xiuhuang told Ouyang Shu that she had received a messenger pigeon saying that Dichen's Handan town had failed the promotion. Ouyang Shu nodded and did not say anything. After sending Bai Hua and the others off, Ouyang Shu finally had time to look at the attributes of the newly promoted territory. Territory: Shanghai County, First Class County. Lord: Not Sang Wui, First Class Earl. Title: Number 1 county in the world. Increases territory popularity by 30. Popular support: 94. Public security: 92. Territory population: 10,000/20,000. Refugee respawn rate: 200. 1 plus 50 equals 300 refugees per day. Territory area: 2,000 square kilometers. Territory characteristics: attraction rate of refugees increased by 50. Attraction rate of special talents increased by 25. Crop production increased by 50. Skill proficiency increased by 25. Soldier level increased by 20. Success rate of territory talents breaking through bottlenecks increased by 10. Political index: 55 out of 100 determines administrative efficiency, affects popular support. Economic index: 50 out of 100 determines trade prosperity, affects tax revenue. Cultural index: 52 out of 100 determines education, affects quality of residence. Military index: 58 out of 100 determines military strength, affects stable relationships. Subsidiary territory: North Sea Town, Pool Town, Friendship Town, Territory Capital. Foresees Bank, Territory Association. Textile Association, Territory Industry, North. Twilight Saltfield, Wolf Mountain Mine, West City Ranch, Gale Valley Military Horse Farm, Territory Special Products. Lianzhou Senhua Wine, Colorful Silk, Baihao Special Buildings. Lianzhou College, Xingyang Temple, Sangha Restaurant, North Sea Harbor, Hidden Buildings. Mazu Temple, Sealed, Recruitment Hall, Yellow Emperor Temple Basic Building List Frowny Face Tea House. A place for drinking tea, resting, recreation, and socializing. Construction requirements: Tea Master, Tea House Building Blueprint for 1,000 units of wood, 8,000 units of green bricks, 2,000 units of stone. Construction time, 7 days. Rouge Cosmetic Shop, a shop that sells rouge and cosmetic products. Construction requirements. Merchant, Rouge Cosmetic Shop blueprint, 2,000 units of wood for 1,000 units of green bricks, 2,000 units of stone. Construction time, 5 days. Xing Wang Temple, a temple used to worship the Xing Wang god. Construction requirements. Xing Wang Temple blueprint, 5,000 units of wood, 8,000 units of green bricks, 4,000 units of stone. Construction time, 10 days. Description. This building is automatically generated. Earth Temple, a temple dedicated to the Earth God. Construction requirements. Earth Temple blueprint, 4,000 units of wood, 5,000 units of green bricks, 4,000 units of stone. Construction time, 7 days. Prison, a place where prisoners are held. Construction requirements. Prison blueprint for 1,000 units of wood, 5,000 units of green bricks, 5,000 units of stone. Construction time, 7 days. Compared to the township stage, the territory attribute panel of the county stage became more refreshing. Among the basic buildings, except for the buildings with names, the other basic buildings did not appear in the attribute panel. After entering the county stage, the basic buildings were no longer the focus of the Lord. On the contrary, the Lord should pay more attention to the territory's industries and local products, which are the two things that determine the difference between the territory and the territory. In addition, compared to the Level 3 towns, there were some other interesting changes in the Level 1 county. The first was the speed at which the refugees respawned. The base value increased from 50 per day in the township stage to 200 per day, and the corresponding population limit also increased greatly. According to the characteristics of Shanghai Town, it would only take a month to reach the population limit of a Level 1 county, which was even faster than a Level 3 town. This was the characteristic of the game. It was difficult to cross the territory level, but it was much easier to cross the territory level. Of course, the reason why it could be so fast was also related to the strong characteristics of Shanghai Town. According to the base value, it would take 50 days to reach the population limit of a Level 1 county, which was almost twice as long as Shanghai Town. In the later stages of the game, as the base value increased, the powerful attributes of Shanghai County would become even more useful. In terms of basic buildings, there were 5 new basic buildings in a Level 1 county. Compared to the township stage, it was a lot less. The main thing was that all kinds of basic buildings, especially agricultural and commercial buildings, were already relatively complete in the township stage. The county stage was just an increase in number and scale. Of the 5 basic buildings, the tea house and the cosmetic shop were commercial buildings and were under the jurisdiction of the Department of Commerce. The Xingwang Temple and the Earth Temple were cultural buildings and were under the jurisdiction of the Department of Culture and Education. As for the prison, it was naturally under the jurisdiction of the sentencing commissioner. Each architectural blueprint for the basic buildings of a Level 1 county cost 200 gold coins. In addition to the automatically generated Xingwang Temple, it also cost 800 gold coins to purchase architectural blueprints. In addition, the granaries, private schools, and ancestral halls at the township level also needed to be upgraded to the county level. Among them, because the ancestral hall was renamed the Yellow Emperor Temple, it did not need to be upgraded, which saved a lot of money. One had to know that the ancestral hall could be upgraded to the ancestral hall level. The remaining granaries and private schools were upgraded to the county level, which was already the highest level. In other words, there were no similar basic building upgrades at the county level. The granaries and private schools were the basic buildings of a Level 2 village. The architectural blueprints for the county level cost 500 gold coins each, which was a total of 1,000 gold coins. The advanced shipyard could be upgraded to the special shipyard, but the special shipyard required a grandmaster shipbuilder. Although Zhang Dehai, the director of the Shanghai shipyard, had reached the master level with the help of the Mengchong fighting ship, he was still a long way from the grandmaster level. To be continued. Chapter 156. P.S. I've finally broken through 10,000 bookmarks. I'll add an extra chapter to congratulate myself. Please bookmark and subscribe. Thank you for your support. After looking at the territory's attributes, Ouyang Shuo was in the mood to visit the Lord's mansion, which had undergone a great change. The size of the Lord's mansion had expanded by more than 3 times, and it was comparable to the county government in ancient times. After the upgrade, the Lord's mansion still had 2 entrances. What was different was that there were 3 courtyards lined up in a row, forming a 6-palace pattern. Of the 3 courtyards in the front row, the one in the middle basically inherited the function of the front yard in the village. What was different was that, apart from the council hall and the Lord's office, the offices of the various departments had all been replaced with special offices for the commissioner. The suzerain's office was still close to the west of the council hall. The size of the office was twice as large as before. Not only was there a reception room, but there was also a small office at the front for the clerk. On the west side of the council hall, other than the Lord's office, there was only the finance director's office. On the east side of the meeting hall, there were 3 offices. Currently, only the administrative director and the director of the Material Reserve Division were working there. The last one was temporarily empty. As for the director of military affairs, Gu Hongliang, he was still working in a special courtyard in the military zone. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a rock garden, a pavilion, and other ancillary facilities, making the entire courtyard look more stylish. The east and west sides became open corridors, connected to the side courtyards on both sides. The courtyard to the west was where the offices of the various departments were located. There were a total of 15 offices in the west courtyard, including the wing rooms. Under the administrative office were the Merit Examination Department, the Household Registration Department, the Culture and Education Department, the Construction Department, and the Agriculture Department. Under the Finance Department were the Tax Department and the Commercial Department. Under the Supplies Department were the Salt Field Department, the Supplies Department, and the Chariot Department, together with the Auditing Department, which operated independently. As for the Disciplinary Department, they were outside, working together with the Public Order Division. The courtyard on the east side was a drill ground, similar to the design of a military camp. The warehouse, the barracks, and the canteen were all available. This place would be the garrison of the Lord's Mansion's guards. They would be in charge of the Lord's Mansion's security 24/7. The 3 courtyards at the back were still the residences of the Lord and his relatives. Ouyang Shuo occupied the main courtyard in the middle, while the side courtyards on the east and west sides were prepared for the women. The 2 sisters, Yingyu and Qing, were arranged by Ouyang Shuo to stay in the west side courtyard. In the past, the 2 sisters lived in the same courtyard as their big brother, Ouyang Shuo, because they didn't have the means to do so. In the end, there was still a difference between men and women. Now that he had the conditions, he naturally had to provide a separate courtyard for the sisters to live in. As for why he didn't arrange for the 2 sisters to live in a side courtyard each, there were naturally other considerations. Seeing that the storm in the real world was getting more and more intense, Ouyang Shuo predicted that the immigration plan might be brought forward. As such, the east side courtyard was specially prepared by Ouyang Shuo for Banger. Other than that, there was also a small garden at the back of the mansion. The 3 small courtyards at the back could all lead directly to the garden. Of course, the layout of the garden was much more advanced than that of the courtyard. There were small bridges, pavilions, ponds, flowers, trees, fishes, birds, and everything else. Due to the limited time, Ouyang Shuo did not take the tour seriously. He took a quick glance, bid farewell to Yingyu and Qing, then returned to his room and went offline. When he was at home during the day, Ouyang Shuo was no longer in the mood to pay attention to the forum. One could imagine that the forum was definitely bustling with activity. However, such matters no longer piqued Ouyang Shuo's interest. After the Battle of Zhuolu, Ouyang Shuo placed his attention on the promotion of his territory. Now that his territory had been successfully promoted, he was considering if he should implement the plan he had previously thought of. Ever since he obtained the inner cannon of the Yellow Arch, Ouyang Shuo's heart had been a little restless. As mentioned before, the only way to reveal secrets about Earth to the public without being arrested by the Union government for leaking state secrets was to make the so-called secrets reasonably deduced by the players through the game's behavior. just like how Ouyang Shuo had suggested Song Jia's big brother to purchase the player's territory. This kind of behavior was legal. Now, the wave caused by the purchase of the territory was on the verge of a full-blown explosion. What was missing was the last fuse. And now, Ouyang Shuo held such a fuse in his hands. If he anonymously revealed the news that the inner strength secret manuals in the game could be cultivated in the real world, it would definitely cause an uproar throughout the world. Originally, even if a player obtained a genuine inner strength secret manual in the game, it would be very difficult to discover it in the real world. Firstly, if the secret manual's level was too low and the effects were not obvious, it would be very difficult for the player's body to show any abnormalities in the real world. Secondly, if no one pointed it out, the average player would not even think about it in this direction. For example, when Song Jia obtained the new swordplay technique, she was only a little surprised and did not think much about it. The only people who knew the truth were the ancient martial arts families in the real world, and they would never divulge this secret. Therefore, even if Feng Qingyang established the Qingyang sect and recruited disciples who learned the rudimentary chapter of the emperor-level cultivation method, they would not think of cultivating it in the real world. Of course, Ouyang Shuo did not dare to rule out the possibility that some lucky person might discover the secret of a genuine inner strength secret manual by chance. However, regardless of whether it was out of consideration for self-preservation or if they wanted to get rich quietly, in short, in the real world, there was still no relevant information that had been revealed. To Ouyang Shuo, obtaining the inner cannon of the Yellow the Arch was equivalent to grasping a sharp blade to counterattack. His secret manuals were obtained through normal means, and he also cultivated them step by step. Therefore, if he announced that he accidentally discovered the secret manual in the game could be cultivated in the real world, he would be exercising his legal rights as a citizen. Be it Gaia or the federal government, they would not be able to do anything to him. Ouyang Shuo no longer hesitated. He turned on his optical computer and logged into the forum. He did not care about the miscellaneous gossip on the forum. Instead, he posted anonymously. He admitted that he accidentally discovered the secret manual in the game could be cultivated in the real world. He did not know if all this was just an illusion, but he hoped that other players could verify it, and so on. In any case, from the beginning to the end, Ouyang Shuo played the role of a lucky person in the post. He was excited and afraid, eager to share it with others. After the post was posted, it was no different from dropping a torpedo. Perhaps it would not take effect immediately. However, as long as players paid attention to the post and tried to cultivate the inner strength secret manual in the game in the real world according to the post instructions, then this news would definitely not be hidden. Once such a secret was exposed, the federal government would definitely not be able to hide the abnormalities of Earth. It was imperative to start the immigration plan ahead of time. This way, it would be equivalent to cutting off Di Chun and the other's biggest advantage and trump card in advance. This was a drastic move. It had to be said that it was very vicious. As long as the immigration was carried out ahead of time, under the premise that Di Chun and the others did not have an advantage over Ouyang Shuo, everyone would be on the same starting line. Ouyang Shuo would have nothing to fear. It could be said that he was a fish in the sea and a bird in the sky. The reason why Ouyang Shuo was confident that Gaia would not delete the post was because of the federal government's position. According to the federal government's wishes, they did not want to hide the truth of Earth from the general public. The current situation was just a compromise that the federal government had to make in order to compete with the major forces. Now, that there was a player who had a legitimate reason to reveal the inside story of the game, the federal government was of course happy to see it happen. Who knew? Gaia might even help him cover up the real identity of the person who posted the post. This would reduce the risk of Ouyang Shuo being exposed to the lowest possible. After posting the post, Ouyang Shuo logged out of the forum, turned off his optical computer, and began his routine cultivation. The torpedo had been planted and would probably be detonated in a few days. In the game, Shanghai County was the #1 county in the world and had established an absolute advantage. It could be said that the right time and the right place were all in place. What Ouyang Shuo needed to consider now was the problem of how Shanghai County should develop in the future. Advancing to the county level would be a whole new level. He definitely could not use the same methods that he used to manage villages to manage a county. To be honest, with Ouyang Shuo's ability, it was already a little difficult for him to control a county. After all, Ouyang Shuo was only an adventure-type player in his previous life. He had never come into contact with the training of territory construction. All he knew was the filtered information that he had obtained from a third party. In reality, Ouyang Shuo was only a university graduate. Whether it was social experience or personal ability, he was rather limited. If not for the experience from his previous life and the Nirvana rebirth after his rebirth, Ouyang Shuo really did not have the confidence to lead his subordinates in Shanghai County to the end. Under the current situation, the only thing Ouyang Shuo could do was to put in more effort than others. On one hand, he would learn through practice. On the other hand, he would use the advantage of his rebirth to do everything possible to accumulate advantages in the early stages. Other than that, being humble and eager to learn was a virtue that he had to have. Knowing people well and appointing them well was a skill that he had to master. Foresight and foresight were his trump cards for victory. Ouyang Shuo had to use the advantage of being familiar with the development of the game to plan for the long term. This was the only way. Even if his personal ability was limited, with the help of his subordinates, he could fight against Di Chun and the other veteran forces. This was also the reason why Ouyang Shuo had repeatedly emphasized the need to continuously find and cultivate talented people. As the leader, he only needed to control the overall situation and steer the ship well. The rest would be carried out by his subordinates. No one was born a genius. Even in the wilderness, great talents could be born. Just like Liu Bang, the ancestor of the Han Dynasty. Many of the important officials around him were just like him in the beginning. To be continued. Chapter 157. P.S. 200 monthly passes plus updates. And there are 2 more updates today. During dinner, Ouyang Shuo talked to Sun Xiaoya about the game for the first time. Xiaoya, you told me last time that you met a lot of life profession players in Dali. Sun Xiaoya inexplicably looked at Ouyang Shuo and casually said, Yeah. Are you interested in forming a guild? Forming a guild? I can't do that. Sun Xiaoya was clearly not interested. What I mean is, you can form a guild made up of all life profession players. In this way, you can gather your friends together. You can open a guild channel so that you can communicate at any time. Ouyang Shuo didn't want to give up and continued to tempt Sun Xiaoya. Sun Xiaoya was a smart girl. Ouyang Shuo's intentions were obvious, and she wasn't stupid. She immediately realized that something was wrong. She stared at Ouyang Shuo and said playfully, Big Tycoon, tell me, what are you planning? She was shocked when Ouyang Shuo sent her 300 gold coins last time. Ouyang Shuo also knew that he was being too impatient and looked a little embarrassed. Fortunately, he had become thicker after getting to know her. He said frankly, I can't explain my plans in a short time. In short, I'll fund it, and you'll form a guild in Dali. It's a win-win situation, isn't it? Sun Xiaoya glanced at Ouyang Shuo with an inexplicable expression. She actually didn't haggle and instead agreed very straightforwardly, making Ouyang Shuo baffled. After dinner, Ouyang Shuo received a call from his aunt, Lin Jing. Ever since she found out about Ouyang Shuo's real identity in the game, Lin Jing naturally paid special attention to Shanghai Town's every move. Last time, when Shanghai Town won the war map, Lin Jing resisted the urge to call. This time, Shanghai Town was promoted to the top county in the world. Lin Jing couldn't help but call to congratulate him. Good job, Shuo. Thank you, Aunt. I really didn't expect you to achieve such results. I'll have to rely on you in the future. Ouyang Shuo smiled bitterly. Aunt, don't tease me anymore. In order to divert his aunt's attention, Ouyang Shuo had to change the topic. All right, Aunt, I want to cooperate with your mercenary group. Are you interested? Cooperate? What kind of cooperation? I hope that the Snow Morning Mercenary Group can set up a branch to recruit lifestyle players. The prerequisite is that we recruit lifestyle players who are willing to settle down in a player's territory. Lin Jing's expression changed. Sure. Are you trying to recruit lifestyle players for your territory? Not bad. This is a time-consuming and laborious task. Our mercenary group needs to be paid. Lin Jing instantly switched to the role of the deputy commander of the Shang, Shuem mercenary group, and began to discuss business with her nephew. Ouyang Shuan nodded, expressing his appreciation for his aunt's professionalism. He smiled and said, "Of course I won't let the Shangshu mercenary group work for nothing. You know that I have what you need the most." Lin Jing's eyes lit up. She asked with uncertainty, "Weapons and equipment. Not bad, but won't you be exposed?" Lin Jing said worriedly. Ouyang Shuo felt warmth in his heart. In the end, they were blood relatives. The first thing he had to consider was the other party's safety. Ouyang Shuo let out a mysterious smile and said, "It's all right. It would take some time to establish such a branch. Who knew what would happen in the future? In short, you just need to know that I have the ability to pay. I think CSC Yun will definitely support you. With the two of you making the decision, this cooperation can be achieved, right?" Lin Jing looked at Ouyang Shuo with a strange expression. She nodded and said, "All right, as long as you know what to do." "Thank you, Aunt. You don't need to be so polite with me. Besides, this is a win-win cooperation, isn't it? Then, let's have a happy cooperation." Happy cooperation. The next day, Ouyang Shuo went online on time. Ouyang Shuo walked out of his room. In the courtyard, Ying Yu and Qing were packing their luggage with the maids Si Qin and Si Qi. From today onwards, the two sisters would move into the west courtyard. Ying Yu put down the luggage in her hand when she saw Ouyang Shuo. She walked forward and said with concern, "Big brother, Qing and I are moving to the west courtyard. You're the only one left in the main courtyard. It's too cold. In my opinion, it's better to recruit some maids. You're now the county lord, so you can't be as casual as before. Outsiders will laugh at you if you don't even have someone to serve you." Ouyang Shuo was startled. He immediately nodded and said, "What you said makes sense, Ying Yu. How about this? Big brother will let you handle the matter of recruiting maids." Ying Yu immediately gave Ouyang Shuo a dirty look and said with dissatisfaction, "Big brother, you're really easy. Recruiting maids for Ouyang Shuo could be a big or small matter." As the lord of the mansion, Ouyang Shuo's maids were naturally the big sisters among the maids in the backyard. Their status was higher than Si Qin and Si Qi's. Hence, it wasn't an easy task to grasp the situation. Of course, it wasn't a difficult matter for Cui Ying Yu, who was born in a big family. Ouyang Shuo might have said it casually, but he had already considered it thoroughly. Ouyang Shuo ignored Ying Yu's teasing and asked curiously, Don't you want to give the courtyard you live in a name?" West Courtyard, it's too hard to pronounce." Before Ying Yu could say anything, Qing jumped over and said with a smile, "Big brother, we've already thought of a name. We'll call it Qingying Courtyard. What do you think? It's a good name, right? Qingying Courtyard? Not bad." Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment and understood that it was a combination of the two's names. What's more, Qingying was a homonym for friendship, symbolizing the relationship between the two sisters. It was really not bad. Hee. Qing seemed somewhat proud. Ouyang Shuo didn't stay in the backyard and walked towards the front courtyard. The front courtyard was also busy. The government officials of the various departments were busy moving their office supplies and documents to the side courtyard on the left. Seeing Ouyang Shuo, Fan Zhongyin and Tian Wenjing walked over hand in hand and said with a smile, "The Lord's mansion has changed greatly. It's really a sign of prosperity." Ouyang Shuo nodded and remembered the name of the backyard, Qingying Courtyard. It seemed that the front courtyard also had to have a name. Otherwise, it would be too inconvenient to call it. He told this idea to the two of them and naturally received unanimous approval. Ouyang Shuo knew that his literary talent was limited and didn't want to embarrass himself. He said, "I'll have to trouble the two of you to name it." Tian Wenjing's expression changed. He took the lead and said, "During the Ming Dynasty, there were two halls in the palace, one for literature and one for martial. They complemented each other. Now, there are two side courtyards in our mansion, one for literature and the other for martial. Why don't we call them literature courtyard and martial courtyard? If it was in real history, such a name would naturally be rebellious. But this was a game. The main map didn't have a unified dynasty. Ouyang Shuo was satisfied with the name. He looked at Fan Zhongyan and asked, "What do you think, mister?" Although Fan Zhongyan felt that it was unstylish to steal the name of the predecessors, Tian Wenjing's words still made sense. It also coincided with the Lord's ambition. Hence, he didn't object and nodded in agreement. After deciding on the name of the courtyard, the next step was to arrange for people to carve a plaque. Of course, Ouyang Shuo, the Lord, didn't need to worry about this. The people under him would take care of it. Ouyang Shuo walked out of the Lord's mansion and headed towards the military camp. What he was most concerned about was the situation of the captives from yesterday and the casualties of the Shanghai Town Army. In the military camp, the cavalry camp, Pool Town's garrison camp, and the other reinforcements were still stationed there. They didn't leave immediately. Before Ouyang Shuo left yesterday, he had already informed the Military Affairs Office's Gu Hongliang that he would be holding a temporary military meeting this morning to discuss the reorganization of the army. In the military camp's meeting hall, the commanders of the various camps gathered. Ouyang Shuo sat at the seat of honor. He looked at Gu Hongliang, who sat at the head of the left row, and said, "Commander Gu, please report on the captives and the casualties of our army." After Gu Hongliang stood up and bowed, he started reporting, "Before introducing the captives, I will first report on the casualties of our army. The North Sea Fleet's first camp lost 50 men. The cavalry camp lost 50 men. The Pool Town City Defense Camp lost 100 men, including 50 cavalrymen and 50 saber and shield soldiers. The Shanghai Town City Defense Camp lost 100 men, including 50 archers and 50 saber and shield soldiers. The two infantry camps lost a total of 150 men, and the Divine Arms Camp lost 10 men. Aside from that, the militia lost 100 men. In total, we lost a total of 560 men. This can be considered a heavy loss." Gu Hongliang paused for a while, waiting for everyone to digest the information. Then he continued, "In this battle, we recruited a total of 3,000 captives. Among them, there are 300 pirates, 700 cavalrymen, 1,000 ordinary bandits, and 1,000 elite bandits. Among the 2,000 bandits, there are 1,000 infantrymen and 1,000 archers." After Gu Hongliang finished his report, he returned to his seat. Ouyang Shuo's expression did not change. He continued asking, "What about the Military Affairs Office's reorganization plan?" Shi Wansui and the other commanders looked at Gu Hongliang. This concerned everyone's interests. Naturally, they were very concerned about it. Some of the battalions had suffered heavy losses and were in urgent need of fresh blood. Gu Hongliang had been the Military Affairs Office's commander for some time already. However, he still felt a little scared when these generals stared at him. Fortunately, he had the feudal lord's support. Otherwise, he would not be able to suppress these generals. The Military Affairs Office intends to give priority to replenishing the soldiers who died in the various battalions. The remaining captives can be used to form a cavalry camp and 3 infantry camps. As for the specific arrangements, I'll have to leave it to my lord to decide." Gu Hongliang beat around the bush and did not propose a specific reorganization plan. Ouyang Shuo frowned. He could also tell that Gu Hongliang did not have much confidence in being the Military Affairs Office's commander. It looked like if there was an opportunity in the future, he would have to find a famous historical figure to oversee the Military Affairs Office. To be continued. Chapter 158. Ouyang Shuo set aside his worries about the military administration for now and announced his plan to reorganize the army. "I generally agree with the military administration's suggestion. Naturally, we need to replenish the dead soldiers as soon as possible. However, not all the soldiers need to be picked from captives." Ouyang Shuo was laying the groundwork, using his actions to express his support for the military administration's work. None of the generals present were fools. They should understand what he meant. Before there was a suitable candidate, Ouyang Shuo had to support Gu Hongliang firmly and be his strong shield. Ouyang Shuo looked at Pei Donglai first and said, "Let the Northern Sea Fleet deal with the 300 pirate captives. Aside from replenishing the 50 dead soldiers, the remaining 250 can be used as the Northern Sea Fleet's reserve soldiers for the future Northern Sea Fleet's 3rd Battalion." Understood. Pei Donglai appeared pleasantly surprised. His lord had pointed out that the Northern Sea Fleet would expand in the future. As the fleet's commander, he was naturally very excited. Pei Donglai had not forgotten his vow to eradicate the Moon Child Island pirates. As for the captured second leader, Huolu, execute him on the spot. We already killed his eldest brother. There is no turning back. Don't leave any loose ends, Ouyang Shuo instructed. Ouyang Shuo continued to instruct. Currently, he was already able to speak about executions in an extremely indifferent manner, and he didn't have any psychological burden anymore. Understood. Pei Donglai understood immediately. Ouyang Shuo looked around and looked at Wang Yuanfeng. Then he said, "The Divine Strategy Battalion is special. The 10 dead soldiers should be recruited from the main camp. Aside from that, we need to nurture more reserve troops. The future city walls will not only be equipped with these few ballistae. The demand for ballistae soldiers will be immense." Understood. Wang Yuanfeng showed a calm expression. Ouyang Shuo then looked at Shi Wansui and said seriously, "The 150 dead soldiers of the infantry battalion were all outstanding barbarian warriors. These 2 battalions will be the future heavy-armored infantry battalions. We need to maintain their purity. In my opinion, we should transfer another 150 men from the Wolf Mountain Garrison Camp to replenish the infantry battalions. As for the vacancies in the Wolf Mountain Garrison Camp, we will allocate them from the various tribes." Understood. Shi Wansui originally did not dare to agree with the opinion of the military office. Now that Sir had thought it through, he naturally had no reason to disagree. In the end, Ouyang Shuo looked at Zhao Su, Zhang Dainiu, and the other officers and said, "The soldiers of the 2 city defense battalions and cavalry battalions that died in battle should be replenished with bandit captives according to the military office's suggestion." "Yes," the 3 generals replied in unison. After that, Ouyang Shuo announced the reorganization plan for the remaining captives. "Lin, here, once the cavalry battalion is replenished, immediately return to the Friendship Town's northern barracks. The cavalry battalion will be renamed the Vanguard Battalion and will be officially separated from the headquarters and integrated into the Friendship Town system." "Thank you for the name, sir." He was forced to leave the camp, but he knew his responsibilities. Monitoring the nomadic tribes was just a temporary measure. From the name that Darren had bestowed upon them, it was not difficult to see that the Vanguard Battalion would bear the role of a sharp knife when they marched into the nomadic tribes. Its importance could not be overstated. "Director Go, here, after you come down, the military office wants to make a special flag for the Vanguard Battalion. The design of the flag will be based on the Lord's flag. The golden dragon on the Lord's flag will be replaced with a cross-tang saber and a lance." Understood. Ouyang Shuo's orders made the other officers look at Lin Yi with jealousy. Aside from the Divine Arms Battalion, the Vanguard Battalion was the 2nd battalion to receive a name from a lord. Now, it was the 1st battalion to have a special flag. This kind of honor made all the officers go crazy with jealousy. Lin Yi chuckled. This usually calm young officer was so excited that he was incoherent at this moment. He said, "All the soldiers of the Vanguard Battalion thank you for the flag, sir. We will not let you down." Ouyang Shuo nodded and continued, "Li Mingyang, here, you are in charge of organizing a cavalry battalion from the remaining 600 bandits. The remaining 100 are to be transferred to the reserves." "Yes, the newly formed cavalry battalion will be stationed in the Western Barracks. You will be the battalion commander." "Thank you for the promotion, sir. We will not let you down." Li Mingyang was clearly excited. Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and continued, "Sun Tangjiao, the former commander of the Cavalry Battalion's 2nd Squadron, will be the 1st Squadron commander of the Vanguard Battalion. Liao Kai, the former commander of the Cavalry Battalion's 3rd Squadron, will be the 2nd Squadron commander of the Vanguard Battalion. Guoyang, the former commander of the Cavalry Battalion's 4th Squadron, will be the first squadron commander of the newly formed Cavalry Battalion. Su Wang, the former commander of the Cavalry Battalion's 5th Squadron, will be the second squadron commander of the newly formed Cavalry Battalion. Yes. Sun Tengjiao and the other 3 replied in unison. Ouyang Shua didn't favor one and discriminated against the other. The remaining 4 squadron commanders were evenly divided into 2 cavalry battalions. The difference was that the Vanguard Battalion would be a heavy cavalry battalion, while the newly formed Cavalry Battalion would be a light cavalry battalion. After arranging the cavalry, Ouyang Shua looked at Shi Wansui again and said, "General Shi, I order you to form an archer battalion and a spearman battalion from the remaining bandit captives. The remaining bandit captives are to be transferred to the reserve force. The 2 infantry battalions, the newly formed cavalry battalions, archer battalions, and spearman battalions will form the 1st Mixed Brigade in Shanghai County. General, you will be the brigade commander, and you will be in charge of the Western Barracks." Shi Wansui became spirited and said loudly, "Thank you for the trust, sir. We will not let you down." Ouyang Shua nodded and continued to announce the personnel changes of the Mixed Brigade. The 1st Battalion of the Mixed Brigade will be the former 1st Infantry Battalion, with Battalion Commander Shi Hu. The 2nd Battalion will be the former 2nd Infantry Battalion, with Battalion Commander Shi Bao. The 3rd Battalion will be the newly formed Cavalry Battalion, with Battalion Commander Li Mingliang. The 4th Battalion will be the newly formed Spearman Battalion, with Battalion Commander Zhao Yan. The 5th Battalion will be the newly formed Archer Battalion, with Battalion Commander Jiang Kai. "Thank you for the promotion, sir. We will not let you down." All the generals shouted in unison. At this point, most of the infantrymen who had been promoted to beginner generals were basically promoted to battalion commanders. Battalion commanders were the first hurdle, and above that was the position of brigade commander. More importantly, for beginner generals who had been converted from regular soldiers, it would be much harder for them to get promoted again compared to Lin Yi and Sun Tengjiao, who had gone through formal training. Most of them would be stuck at beginner generals, unable to get promoted again in their entire lives. Only those who were truly talented, through training, could stimulate their own potential, and with a certain amount of fortuitous encounters, they could once again advance to become a mid-rank general. Ouyang Shua didn't look like he was going to disperse the meeting, just as the generals thought that this was the end of the reorganization. After the upgrade, there's a new training field in the manor. It's been officially named the Martial Arts Institute. This means that it's time to form the Lord's Personal Guard. The formation of the Personal Guard will be a platoon for now. The members of the Personal Guard won't be recruited, but will be selected from the active battalions. Those who want to be part of the Personal Guard must be the best of the best, skilled in archery and horsemanship, as well as martial arts. Don't worry, sir. The Mixed Brigade will definitely recommend the best of the best to participate in the selection. Shi Wansui, the newly appointed commander of the Mixed Brigade, was the first to speak. 500 men from the Vanguard are up for selection. Lin Yi followed. Following him were the commanders of the city defense battalions. All the generals supported the formation of the Personal Guard. Which one of the generals present wasn't personally promoted by Ouyang Shua? Now that the Lord was forming the Personal Guard, all of them wanted to send their best soldiers to be selected. To a soldier, being able to enter the Personal Guard was a great honor. Ouyang Shua let out a gratified smile and said, "The specific selection will be handled by the guard captain. Wang Feng, here, I appoint you as the captain of the Personal Guard. You'll be in charge of the selection. Thank you for your trust, sir. I will not let you down," Wang Feng said excitedly. Just now, the infantry commanders had been reshuffled, and all the platoon leaders had been promoted. Only Wang Feng had not been promoted. One had to know that Wang Feng was one of the best among all the platoon leaders. As the eldest disciple of the Bejiquan master, Lin Yu, Wang Feng's potential was greater than battalion commanders like Zhao Sihu. It wouldn't be a problem for him to become a mid-level general. As for high-level generals, it would depend on luck. Now, the answer was finally revealed. Although Wang Feng was still a platoon leader, anyone with a discerning eye would know that his position carried more weight than an ordinary battalion commander's. From the Lord's description, it wasn't hard to guess that every member of the future personal guard would be an elite soldier that surpassed a ninth-grade elite soldier. The personal guard was no longer limited to a single type of soldier. They had to master horsemanship, archery, and combat skills. It was a comprehensive type of soldier. That's right. In Ouyang Shua's eyes, the future personal guard was like the special forces in real life. They were the elites of the elites, the sharp knives of the sharp knives. It was because of such harsh requirements that Ouyang Shua limited the personal guard to one platoon. Shi Wan Sui, Lin Yi, and the other generals who had participated in the Zhuolu battle weren't surprised by the Lord's arrangement. During the Zhuolu battle, Wang Feng had followed the Lord closely. In fact, he was already fulfilling his duty as the captain of the personal guard in advance. If any other general took the position of the captain of the personal guard, it would be difficult to convince the other generals. Only Wang Feng had no objections. The military had always worshipped the strong. In terms of martial arts, Shi Wan Sui was naturally the best. Below Shi Wan Sui, Lin Yi, Sun Tongjiao, and Wang Feng were the strongest. Even a mid-level general, Pei Donglai, was slightly inferior to the three of them. Therefore, Wang Feng was the most suitable person to be the captain of the personal guard. To be continued. Chapter 159. Author's Note. 1,000 subscriptions plus updates. There will be a second chapter at night. After announcing the formation of the personal guards, the meeting was dismissed. After the meeting, Ouyang Shua ordered the various divisions to immediately return to their camps after replenishing their troops. Especially the cavalry battalion, which was now the vanguard battalion, they had to immediately return to the Friendship Town's northern camp. Out of the 300 green beetle horses obtained during the dawn operation, 100 were lost in the Zhuolu battle. Ouyang Shua planned to leave the remaining 250 for his personal guards and the other 50 for the military intelligence department. Originally, the vanguard battalion needed the green beetle horses the most. However, in order to confuse the Sky Abundant tribe, it was impossible to equip them with green beetle horses that were not purchased from the Sky Abundant tribe. Therefore, the vanguard battalion was short of 400 green beetle horses. Fortunately, the Sky Abundant tribe had already sent someone to contact Zhou Haichun and express their intention to trade again. After Ouyang Shuo received Zhou Haichun's official letter, he authorized Friendship Town to purchase green beetle horses with all their might. They had to equip the vanguard battalion with green beetle horses in the shortest time possible. After leaving the military camp, Ouyang Shua went to the military office. In the military office's conference room, Ouyang Shua summoned the three heads of the military intelligence department for a military meeting. Lord, is there something big going on? Song San looked excited. Song San had also participated in the military meeting just now, but he was disappointed that there was no arrangement for the military intelligence department. Now that the Lord had summoned them alone, it was undoubtedly a positive sign. Unfortunately, Ouyang Shua gave Song San a severe warning and said in a deep voice, "To be blunt, I am not satisfied with the military intelligence department's recent work. Your intelligence can't keep up with the military's actions. It is truly disappointing." Song San's face turned pale as he hurriedly stood up from his seat and knelt on the ground. He said in fear, "This subordinate did not do his job well. Please punish me, Lord." Lung Qian and Lei Sun also knelt on the ground in shame. Ouyang Shua's criticism was like a bolt from the blue to the military intelligence department. If it were to be spread, the entire military intelligence department would not be able to lift their heads. Looking at the trio's remorseful expressions, Ouyang Shua's expression softened. He waved his hand and said, "Get up, it will be embarrassing if someone sees us." "Yes." Song San and the rest got up and returned to their seats. The fear on their faces had not subsided. "I know that the three of you have no experience in intelligence work. You're all self-taught. It's a bit too much to ask you to carry this burden. However, there's no other way. Who asked our territory to lack professional intelligence personnel? I can only squeeze the three of you dry. Ouyang Shua's words were sincere and heartfelt. Your subordinate is ashamed to have let you down. Song San was a little emotional. This young man was one of the first two squad leaders of the Shanghai village. Due to his flexibility in handling matters, he was transferred from the army by Ouyang Shua and was put in charge of establishing the military intelligence department. Before he came to Shanghai village, he was just a ruffian in the village. He didn't even have a proper name. The current name was given by Ouyang Shua. Then, two capable spies, Lung Qian and Lei Sun, emerged from the military intelligence department one after another, and their limelight overshadowed him, the director of the SEAL department. Fortunately, Ouyang Shua did not lose his trust in him and still kept him in the position of director. Even Lung Qian and Lei Sun were not trained in this field. They did not have any experience in intelligence work. Therefore, to be honest, it was not easy for the military intelligence department to come this far. Unfortunately, Ouyang Shua had placed too much hope on the military intelligence department. He knew very well how important intelligence was to war. It was precisely because of this that he established the military intelligence department at the village stage. He hoped that the military intelligence department could develop step by step through practice. Unfortunately, intelligence work was a very professional job. The knack of it was not something that outsiders could figure out thoroughly. Therefore, the military intelligence department's development to this point was just passable. Ouyang Shua was also having a headache. Since the quality could not keep up, he could only make up for it with quantity. He looked at the restless three heads of the military intelligence department and said, "I've decided to expand the military intelligence department again. The military intelligence department will be expanded to 200 people. In addition to the previous military intelligence team 1 and military intelligence team 2, a special operations team will be established. Song San, you will be personally in charge of the special operations team. During this time, you must train a group of capable spies with all your heart. In order to increase the military intelligence department's efficiency, the carriage department will provide you with 50 green beetle horses. Thank you for your trust, Your Excellency." Song San took the lead and said, somewhat grateful. Ouyang Shua waved his hand and continued, "In addition, I will assign the three of you some tasks. Song San will lead the special operations team and be responsible for the investigation of the Western region. Lung Qian will lead the military intelligence team 1 and be responsible for the investigation of the Eastern region, including the continuous investigation of the mountain barbarian tribes. Lei Sun will lead the military intelligence team 2 and continue to be responsible for the investigation of the northern region. This will provide reliable intelligence support for the military's next operation. Yes, I will give you 1 month. You must clearly understand the distribution of the territories on the eastern and western sides and draw up a map of the territories. This will provide powerful support for the upcoming territorial war." Ouyang Shua's gaze began to look at the surrounding neighbors with malicious intentions. Yes, after coming out of the military intelligence department, Ouyang Shua began to calculate the cost of the military's reorganization this time. After some calculations, to replace the dead soldiers, 3 new battalions, a personal guard, and the expansion of the military intelligence department's combat personnel, a total of 1,900 gold coins would be needed. In this way, the 2,000 gold coins that Ouyang Shua had kept last time and the 100 gold coins from before would only be 200 gold coins left. The last 200 gold coins were not kept in Ouyang Shua's hands. He used them to buy a guild token from the real-time auction platform and sent it to Sun Xiaoya, so that she could establish a pure life profession guild in Dali. Ouyang Shua, who was empty-handed, didn't even have the money to purchase the basic building blueprints of a rank 1 county. He could only wait until the end of the month to hand over the profits of the Wolf Mountain Mine and the Northern Twilight Saltworks for the second half of May. Supreme Court. Sun Xiaoya was strolling around the market with her friends when a system notification suddenly rang in her ears. System notification. You have received an anonymous package. Would you like to accept it? Sun Xiaoya's heart moved. She recalled Ouyang Shua's words from last night and silently said, "Accept." With a flash of white light, a guild token appeared in Sun Xiaoya's storage bag. Like the village creation token, Guild tokens were also divided into 4 grades: bronze, black iron, silver, and gold. Different grades of guild tokens had different member limits and guild characteristics. A bronze guild token had a member limit of 100 and no guild characteristics. A black iron guild token had a member limit of 1,000 and 1 guild characteristic. A silver guild token had a member limit of 10,000 and 2 guild characteristics. A gold guild token had a member limit of 100,000 and 3 guild characteristics. Generally speaking, guilds with a bronze guild token were known as small guilds, black iron guild tokens were known as medium-sized guilds, silver guild tokens were known as large guilds, and gold guild tokens were known as super large-scale guilds. In theory, super large-scale guilds could have a maximum of 100,000 members. In reality, they could expand the member limit by establishing a branch guild. Of course, it was impossible to manage a super large-scale guild with 100,000 members without a powerful and efficient professional management team. Therefore, the 10 great guilds all had at least one workshop supporting them. Some even had financial groups investing in them and sending professional management teams to maintain the operations of the guild. So, if a certain solo adventurer wanted to establish a large or even super large guild because of his high level and fame, then he could still be a carefree boss who didn't have to do any work. He would have to do it himself. Then, such a guild would either be secretly controlled by a financial group or face the risk of disbanding at any time. Players in the game were far more realistic than those in reality. They wouldn't risk their lives for your guild just because of your fame and passion. There are not many fools like that. Especially in games that were linked to real interests, it was even more impossible. Unlike the village creation token, the guild token could be leveled up by completing guild quests. Moreover, the guild's characteristics could be chosen and were not fixed. The top 10 guilds like Baleful Blood Mercenary Group and Snow Rose Group all used the lowest bronze guild token in the beginning. Then, they continued to complete guild quests to upgrade the level of the token. At this stage, the top 10 mercenary groups' guild tokens had already been upgraded to silver guild token. In the current market, a bronze guild token could be bought for 10 gold coins. As for the black iron guild token, it cost around 200 gold coins, just like the one Ouyang Shuo bought. As for the silver guild token, only the top 10 guilds had it, and they were all upgraded by completing guild quests. The gold guild token was even more extinct, and it was not something that adventurer players could obtain. Upgrading the token through guild quests was still relatively easy in the early stages. For example, the top 10 guilds had many high-end players, and with their terrifying execution ability, it took them less than half a year to upgrade their guild tokens from the lowest bronze guild token to the silver guild token. However, to upgrade it to the highest gold guild token, they had to go through a very long period of suffering. Ouyang Shuo remembered that in his previous life, the first super large-scale guild in the China server, the Baleful Blood Mercenary Group, had upgraded at the end of the second year of the game. It took them a whole year and a half to do so. Of course, other than the addition of a guild characteristic, the silver guild token was enough for the top 10 guilds. After all, they could establish a branch to manage their outer members. The core members actually did not reach the full state of 10,000 people. The so-called core members were basically die-hard members of the guild, and they had to receive a salary. To be continued. Chapter 160. After Sun Xiaoye received the guild token from Ouyang Shuo, she started thinking about establishing a guild. She wasn't in the mood to go shopping anymore. She turned to look at her companion. Luo, let's establish a guild to play. What do you think? Luo, full name Autumn Leaf, 21 years old, university student, intermediate alchemist, best friend of Sun Xiaoye in game. Establish a guild? We don't have that much money. The guild token is very expensive. We can't just buy a bronze token. That's too degrading. Sun Xiaoye took out the black iron guild token from her storage bag and raised it in the air. Look, what's this? Ah, black iron guild token. That's right. Xiaoye, when did you become so rich? A few days ago, you took out 200 gold coins. That was already scary enough. Now you're taking out a black iron guild token. This token costs 200 gold coins on the market. Luo looked at Sun Xiaoya suspiciously. Tell me honestly, Xiaoya, are you a sugar daddy? Sun Xiaoya's face turned red and said angrily, Stupid Luo, what are you saying? These were all sent to me by a friend of mine. It's not free. I signed a contract to sell myself. Huh? You're still saying you're not a sugar daddy. You even signed a contract. You. Sun Xiaoya was furious. She couldn't clear her name even if she jumped into the Yellow River. She knew she couldn't continue like this, or else Luo would go on for an entire afternoon. Anyways, I want to establish a guild. Just tell me, do you want to join? As expected, Luo's attention was immediately diverted, and she said impatiently, Join, of course I'll join. A black iron guild token had the unique characteristics of a guild. Also, I want to be the vice leader. Sun Xiaoya took the initiative again and said proudly, You want to be the vice leader? Yes. Call me sister, and I'll agree. Ah, we're the same age. Even the month is the same. Why should I call you sister? Are you going to call me sister? If you don't, the vice leader is going to fly away. Luo rolled her eyes and suddenly stuck to Sun Xiaoya. She called out coyly, Sis. Sun Xiaoya shuddered. Go, you might as well not call me that. I don't care. I've already screamed. Quick. Let's go register now. Luo started to act shamelessly. Sun Xiaoya rolled her eyes at her and said, What's the rush? Let's call the drawing board and the others. We can't just have the two of us in a guild. Yes. Quickly send a messenger pigeon and ask them to meet us at the Yamen of the Supreme Court. Sun Xiaoya and Luo arrived first. 10 minutes later, 3 male players walked over. Seeing the 3 boys who came late, Luo pouted and said, You guys are boys. You actually made us 2 girls wait for you. Really? Eldest miss, we ran all the way from the academy. The one who spoke was a boy of medium build and handsome appearance. His name was Wu Qi. He claimed that he was 5 chi tall, hence his name. However, his companions were used to calling him shameless. He was also studying at the Royal City School of Architecture, but his major was bridge design. Wu Qi and Luo were a couple in real life. Sun Xiaoya got to know Luo through Wu Qi, and they became best friends. As for the other 2 boys, one of them was skinny. His name was Drawing Board. From his ID, one could tell that he was Sun Xiaoya's classmate at the Royal City School of Architecture. He majored in municipal engineering. The last boy was slightly plump. His name was 9-Line. He was a cartographer. All right, everyone is here now. Before we register, let's give the guild a name. We are all from a school of architecture. Why don't we call it the Society of Architecture? Drawing Board said. That sounds awful. No. Plus, I'm not from a school of architecture. Luo objected. 9-Line chuckled and said pervertedly, Luo, even though you aren't from the school of architecture, you are considered the wife of the school of architecture. Ha! The others laughed. Only Luo chased after 9-Line. After fooling around, Wu Qi said seriously, I thought of a name. What? Soil Fortress? What? Sai, think about it. A civil fort. Not only does it suit our profession, but it's also very imposing. Sun Xiaoya facepalmed. It seemed like she couldn't count on these guys to come up with a more artistic name. She turned to look at Luo and said, Luo, do you have any good ideas? Luo thought seriously for a moment. Xiaoya, why don't we combine our names? Let's call it Luo Guild. Ignore these guys. Yes. Sun Xiaoya nodded. It was finally reliable. I agree. What do you guys think? Under Miss Luo's gaze, Wu Qi was the first to retreat. I agree too. Yay. 3 votes in favor. More than half of the votes. Pass. Luo didn't wait for the drawing board and 9-Line to express their opinions. She hurriedly announced the result of the vote. The drawing board and the 9-Line, the 2 brothers in trouble, looked at each other and said with a bitter smile, Sigh. Inhumane. Luo didn't care about their complaints. She pulled Sun Xiaoya into the office. Sun Xiaoya handed over the guild token and took the form from the staff. After filling in the guild name and other basic information, She handed the form back to the staff. Finally, after paying a processing fee of 1 gold coin, the guild was established. The efficiency was very high. After the Luo Yu Guild was established, Sun Xiaoya kept her promise and appointed Luo Luo as the vice guild leader. Wu Qi, the drawing board, and 9-line were the hall masters. The vice guild leader and hall master had the authority to recruit members. As for the authority to kick people, only the guild leader had the authority to do so. After the guild was established, the guild channel was automatically opened. It didn't need to pay fees like the Alliance channel. A Black Iron Guild token could be used to select a guild characteristic. Since it was a guild purely for lifestyle players, Sun Xiaoya chose the characteristic of increasing skill proficiency by 10. Every guild member would have a guild emblem pinned on their chest. The emblem of the Luo Yu Guild was designed as a full moon. On the moon, a group of people sat in a circle. The guild emblem was an accessory. The guild characteristic was realized through the accessory. Once the emblem was taken off, the guild characteristic would disappear. After walking out of the government office, Sun Xiao said to her companions, "I told Luo Luo before that I established the guild because my friend asked me to do so. He's a lord and hopes to recruit lifestyle players for his territory through the guild." "Do you have to join a territory to join a guild?" the drawing board asked. Sun Xiaoya shook her head. "Of course not. It's all voluntary. What's the name of your friend's territory? Is it powerful?" Wu Qi was concerned about strength. Sun Xiaoya smiled bitterly. "I don't know what his territory is called. However, I'm sure that his territory is very powerful. You saw it too. My training fees and the guild token were all funded by him. He's a sugar daddy." Luo Luo started to make a fuss again. "Go and die. Xiaoya, you want us to help recruit lifestyle players for the guild, right?" Among the four, 9-line was the most rational and quick-witted. "That's right. With the guild characteristics of the Luo Yu Guild, it shouldn't be too difficult to recruit people. However, due to the prerequisite of having a territory, we have to filter the players. Try to choose lifestyle players who are willing to settle down in a player's territory and have potential," Sun Xiaoya explained. 9-line nodded. "Don't worry, we'll help you." "Yes. Yay. Let's go to the plaza and recruit people." Luo Luo loved crowds. Jianya, Snow Rose mercenary group base. "Jing Jing, are you saying that your nephew wants to work with our mercenary group?" Xiesun, who was Snow Rose in the game, asked uncertainly. "Yes. He told you his identity in the game." Xiesun knew Lin Jing too well and guessed the reason immediately. Lin Jing wasn't surprised at all. She nodded and said yes. "However, I can't tell you for now." The two of them had a tacit understanding with each other for many years. They would say whatever was on their minds. Since Lin Jing didn't say anything, Xiesun definitely wouldn't ask. "How does he want to work with us?" "The mercenary group will build a lifestyle player guild for him. Later on, his territory will be provided with weapons and equipment." Lin Jing didn't hide anything. "Weapons and equipment?" "Yes. Believe me, we won't lose out on this deal." Lin Jing knew that if she didn't reveal more information, she wouldn't be able to convince others. "Oh, I really can't tell you." Lin Jing clenched her teeth tightly. "All right, I wasn't wrong. Your nephew isn't simple. He's ambitious too. Does that mean you agree?" Lin Jing was delighted. "You already promised him. What else can I do if I don't agree?" Xiesun said helplessly. "Haha, Xiyun, you're the best. All right, don't force me. Since it's a collaboration, we have to show our sincerity. We can't just do it half-heartedly. You'll be in charge of building the guild yourself. I'm curious what kind of weapons and equipment he can provide for our mercenary group. Why are you so impatient?" Snow Rose was able to develop to its current scale because of Xiesun's unwavering trust. "Yes." Lin Jing nodded. "I heard that a few guilds in Jianya have been restless recently. There are signs of them forming an alliance. We have to be careful." Xiesun smiled faintly. "They're coveting our throne as the #1 guild in Jianya. What do you think? Let them do whatever they want. They're just a bunch of people with ulterior motives. What can they achieve? Are we really going to ignore them?" Lin Jing was still worried. Don't worry. Trust me. All right, as long as you know what to do. Lin Jing still trusted Xiesiyu. To be continued. Chapter 161. P.S. 1,100 subscriptions plus updates. There will be 2 updates today. Ouyang Shuo returned to the Lord's mansion. As he passed by the clerk's office, he saw by Nanpu sorting out documents. He suddenly remembered something and said, Nanpu, this month's government meeting will be on the 25th. Inform the various departments to make early preparations. Take advantage of the promotion of the territory and request the chiefs to report in detail the next stage of the work plan. Yes. Bai Nanpu quickly noted it down. All right. Also, please invite Director Tian to my office. Yes. Bai Nanpu nodded and left the office. Ouyang Shuo went into the reception room, picked up the tea set, and personally brewed a pot of fine white tea. When Tian Wenjing came in, he was surprised to see His Excellency making tea. He wanted to help, but said, How can I let His Excellency do this kind of rough work? The servants are too incompetent. Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and invited Tian Wenjing to sit opposite him. He said with a smile, The way of tea is broad and profound. Occasionally, doing it myself can also dispel my irritation. He then pushed a cup of tea to the tea table in front of Tian Wenjing. Tian Wenjing hurriedly took the teacup, took a sip, and put it down again. He said with a smile, His Excellency is in a good mood. After exchanging pleasantries, Ouyang Shuo went straight to the point and said, Yangon, if, and I'm just saying if, you were to be transferred out of the Resource Reserve Department, then among the 3 directors and the Assistant Director of the Resource Reserve Department, who do you think would be qualified to be the director? Tian Wenjing was startled. He had thought that His Excellency had called him over to talk about work. He didn't expect that he would drop such a heavy bomb and transfer him out of the Material Reserve Department. For a moment, Tian Wenjing was a little hesitant and didn't know how to answer. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said with a smile, Sir, you don't have to worry. Just give an objective evaluation. Since His Excellency had put it this way, he had to say something. Tian Wenjing calmed his mind and pondered for a moment. He went through the 4 chiefs of the Material Reserve Department in his mind. The Assistant Chief, Yuan Xiaoping, had been promoted by His Excellency because he had found a gold mine. There was no doubt about Yuan Xiaoping's professional level, but his level of government affairs was limited by his family background. In addition, the Wolf Mountain mine was far away from the base camp, so Yuan Xiaoping lacked the opportunity to study at Lianzhou College. Moreover, the current Wolf Mountain mine could not do without this chief official for a while. Du Xiaolan, the director of supplies, and the disciple of Cui Yingyu, the director of finance. Unfortunately, because the time he spent with Cui Yingyu was too short, he didn't learn a lot of skills. It could be said that he was doing his best to manage the supply division. However, he was limited by his own ability, so it was extremely difficult for him to improve further. Coupled with the natural weakness of women, it was even more difficult. Not everyone could become the second Cui Yingyu. Chariot Division head Zhongshan Pao was also a peasant. The work of the carriage department was relatively simple. After establishing the Storm Valley Military Horse Farm, Zhongshan Pao spent most of his energy on it. He wouldn't be able to leave in a short period of time. Furthermore, his abilities were limited, and it would be difficult for him to take on such a huge responsibility. The person Tian Wenjing admired the most was still Xinjue, the head of the Salt Field Bureau. This young man had stood out in the year-end evaluation and was placed in an important position. After taking over the Salt Field Department, he managed it in a very short period of time. The Northern Twilight Salt Field had been expanded several times, but nothing went wrong. Xinjue, as the division head, had made great contributions. What was even rarer was that Xinjue was quick-witted and eager to learn. In his free time, he would either study at Lianzhou College or follow Tian Wenjing to learn how to handle government affairs. Tian Wenjing thought highly of him. His only concern was that Xinjue was still too young and lacked experience. Compared to Fan Zhongyan, Tian Wenjing was more straightforward. After thinking it through, he didn't have any concerns and said directly, since His Excellency has asked, then I will be so bold as to say this. If you really want to recommend someone to take over the position of the division head, then I think Shinjue is the most suitable among the four. Ouyang Shuo nodded. The person recommended by Tian Wenjing was in line with his thoughts. After Tian Wenjing finished speaking, he still felt uneasy. This naturally didn't escape Ouyang Shuo's eyes. He also knew why Tian Wenjing was like this. He smiled and said, "Sir, do you have any doubts?" "That's right." Tian Wenjing was straightforward. Ouyang Shuo picked up his teacup and took a sip before saying, "To be honest, it was a waste of your talent to assign you to the Resource Reserve Department. However, at that time, there was no one in charge of the Resource Reserve Department. As a last resort, it was an expedient measure. Now, the Resource Reserve Department is on the right track, and there is an outstanding talent like Shinjue. It's time for Sir to withdraw from the situation." Tian Wenjing's expression changed, and he felt a little worried. Fortunately, Tian Wenjing wasn't an ordinary person. He quickly collected his emotions and asked, "What does His Excellency mean?" "Sir, don't be anxious. Everything will be revealed during this month's government affairs meeting." Ouyang Shuo obviously didn't want to reveal the mystery ahead of time. Tian Wenjing nodded, and his heart completely settled. After sending Tian Wenjing off, it was already close to noon. The government officials who had been busy for the whole morning left the Lord's mansion and returned to their homes for lunch. Ouyang Shuo also got up and returned to the backyard. Although Ing Yu and Qing had moved to the neighboring Qing Ing courtyard, they still had their meals in the main courtyard. In Qing Er's words, she couldn't let Big Brother be too lonely. In fact, in the entire backyard, only the main courtyard had a kitchen that was responsible for the meals of all the people in the backyard. The cook was an intermediate chef, Aunt Wang, who was personally picked by Gu Sanyang before she left. Now, the dining table in the Lord's mansion was very rich. There were chicken, duck, fish, vegetables, fruits, and everything else. Ever since the jewelry shop opened, business was booming. Especially the copper and silver jewelry, there were many people buying it. Refugees usually didn't have much on them. Even if they had valuable items, they would be looted by the bandits. Now that their lives were stable and rich, they naturally had to buy jewelry again. The profits from a jewelry shop alone were enough to support the daily expenses of the Lord's mansion. After 3 months of continuous stimulation, the territory's economy had begun to show signs of prosperity. According to Ing Yu, the financial income for the May month would cross the threshold of 2,000 gold coins for the first time. Qing was now a rich young lady in name and in reality. The business of the clothing workshop was exceptionally good. Following the promotion of Shanghai Town to Shanghai County, the number of refugees increased further. Qing had already discussed with Wu and I to prepare to expand the scale of the clothing workshop. At the dining table, the siblings were chatting idly. "Big Brother, guess what? In the morning, I leaked the news that the Lord's mansion was recruiting maids for Big Brother." Immediately, a large group of young women came to inquire about the news. Many of the people who came were daughters of wealthy families. It seems like the drunkard has ulterior motives. Big Brother's charm is extraordinary. Ing Yu teased. Ouyang Shuo shook his head indifferently and said, "You have to keep a close eye on them. We are recruiting maids, not choosing wives or concubines. Don't delay a girl's future. Big Brother is really heartless. I wonder what kind of family is worthy of Big Brother." Ing Yu teased. Ouyang Shuo glared at her. "Eat properly. You even dare to tease Big Brother. Big Brother is so overbearing." Qing protested for her sister, but her tone was a little listless. Ouyang Shuo looked at Qing in surprise. He turned to look at Ing Yu and asked, "Our little troublemaker, why is she so quiet today? It's not like her." Ing Yu pursed her lips and smiled. Qing is worried about the clothing workshop. The workshop wants to expand, but there are no more empty spaces in the business district. Basically, all of them are occupied by large workshops. Ouyang Shuo understood. This little money grubber, Ouyang Shuo, really didn't know if he should be happy or worried. She only had money in her eyes. Ouyang Shuo looked at Qing dotingly and said with a smile, "Silly girl, don't worry. Why don't you tell Big Brother about this?" Big Brother will help you solve it. Big Brother is so busy. I don't want to disturb you. Ching was quite sensible. Ouyang Shua shook his head with emotion. Recently, he had really neglected this sister of his. All right, don't worry. The new plan for the territory will be released soon. The construction of the second city wall will also start. When the city wall is finished, there will be a lot of empty space for you to upgrade the clothing workshop. Really? Ching immediately brightened up. When did Big Brother lie to you? Yeah. Thank you, Big Brother. All right, hurry up and eat. All right. Ching worries disappeared, and she became cheerful again. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shua took the time to go to the Xing Wang temple. The original Xing Wang was not a god. It referred to the moat outside the outskirts of the city. The original meaning of Xing Wang was derived from the water god. It was recorded in the Li Ji suburb characteristics. The Son of Heaven is the great wax eight, the sacrificial hall, and the water god. The earliest god that the ancients believed in was the water god. Later, it gradually evolved into the guardian god of the outskirts, which was the Xing Wang god. The Xing Wang was the lord of a city in the world of ghosts and gods. His authority was equivalent to a county magistrate in the mortal world. Taoism regarded the Xing Wang as a god who cut off evil and eliminate evil, protect the country and protect the nation. It was said that he could respond to people's requests, rain in times of drought, and clear in times of flood. According to historical records, there was a Xing Wang temple as early as 239 AD. Since the Tang dynasty, counties and counties all worshipped the Xing Wang. After the Song dynasty, the custom of worshipping the Xing Wang became more common. In the old days, all counties and prefectures had a Xing Wang temple. The feudal dynasties of the past included worshipping the Xing Wang in their rituals. It was mostly to pray for rain, clear skies, and fire. There is a saying, the god who is close to the people is the Xing Wang, and the official who is close to the people is the Xing Wang. Since the Ming dynasty, the Xing Wang temple was built every month. The magistrate would lead his subordinates to pay a visit to the Xing Wang. The new officials had to stay in the temple the day before they took office. The next morning, they would worship the Xing Wang in their regular clothes. Shanghai County's Xing Wang Temple was naturally built in the cultural district. It was located together with the Matsu Temple, Yellow Emperor Temple, and other ancestral temples. Gradually, it formed a group of ancestral temples. After the Xing Wang Temple was built, the Department of Culture and Education had already arranged for people to manage and maintain the operation of a Xing Wang Temple. To be continued, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.